All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Carey with Church of the Eternal Logos. And tonight, we are going to be having a very fun and interesting stream sponsored by Nick Edmonds. Shout out to the Nick Edmonds for tonight's stream. I am wanting to dive into a critical analysis of the spiritual paradigm of Russell Brand. Russell Brand, that very charismatic and outgoing figure, that actor turned sort of spiritual guru now, and then more recently has come to be very critical of things like the World Economic Forum, Dr. Klaus Schwab, aspects of what essentially is the Great Reset, as we all know. And so I thought this was going to be a really insightful stream and useful, hopefully, for a lot of sort of new age people, spiritual, not religious. Maybe you're into psychedelics, Eastern mysticism, because tonight we're going to be listening to the majority of tonight's stream. It's not going to be a big monologue. I'll give you a little bit, break you off a little bit before we get into it. But we're just going to listen to Russell Brand in his own words describe his own spiritual worldview and how he understands this this eternal moment of vibrations and higher levels of realities of which we have to go inside, transcendently meditate, and rise our consciousness through the chakra systems, through our sort of energy vortexes, through different sorts of contemplative practices. It could be meditation, could be yoga, could be whatever it is that you do. And so Russell Brand really, I would argue, epitomizes the sort of current spiritual seeker who's sort of devoid of any serious metaphysical, theological, or philosophical foundation. And now, ironically, Russell Brand is very outspoken. He's very clever. He's witty. I would say he's a fairly intelligent dude. But what we're going to see, which is most absolutely striking, is here, we want to bring a little bit of a higher level analysis. So we're looking at paradigms, right? We take seriously this sort of transcendental argument for God. We take seriously the sort of postmodern turn in epistemology. What does that mean? That means the postmodernism of the breakdown of the sort of shared consensus of reality, and that we're all sort of shattered and fractured into our own paradigms, our own webs of belief. To a degree, yeah, I would say, and you could look at Marshall McLuhan in our last stream about how the digification, the electronic mediums of communication sort of make us all nobodies, right? That they've aided in this process. But Russell Brand, I think, he is existing in a multiplicity of paradigms, and he doesn't realize it. And I think that's one of the biggest problems, and one of the things that we're going to be seeing over and over and over again in today's stream is Russell Brand. For example, he's going to be criticizing a lot of the sort of the decade-long endeavors between 2020 and 2030. We know what those are. We read the books. We know the culprits. And so lately, Russell Brand has been talking about Trump and how the Russia hoax was fake and Clinton's lied about it and the U.S. government was in on it. And then Dr. Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset's not a conspiracy. It's a real thing. And yet, at the same exact time, everything he promotes in regards to a sort of spiritual teaching is, in fact, totally coinciding with the agenda that he is then criticizing. So it's funny how we see Russell Brand, in a way, criticizing the sort of political facade, the political front of a much larger, again, we are Orthodox Christians here, of a much larger spiritual warfare, a spiritual battle, a spiritual transformation of the world. And I couldn't help but think, too, is he and many of the interviewers that he's both been interviewed by or interviewed, believe in this progress, right? Material, spiritual, evolutionary progress. And so we are just on this exponential incline of prosperity. And so that is exactly the basis for the Great Reset, for the new economic structure, for the same things that he's criticizing. Well, we I have a clip where he's going to be talking about doing away with the individual. The individual's an illusion, right? We're just all one. Well, if we're all one, well, then a one world government's probably a good thing, right? A one world government probably mandated medical practices, of which he's recently spoke out against, the stabby passports, the jibby jab passports that they want. Well, he's criticized those, but Russell, in your own worldview. And so we'll see that he uses a Christian morality over and over again. Again, the majority of tonight's stream is going to be watching clips of him talk about his own worldview. So we're going to have to stop, comment on him, because I don't want to get hit with any copyright violations or get the stream taken down due to any YouTube violations. So if that were to happen, guys, make sure you go over to Rockfin, because right now we're broadcasting live over on Rockfin. And so if YouTube ends up taking down the stream because of the clips we're going to watch of Russell Brand, it will still be active over on Rockfin. So make sure you're over there. But there's going to be multiple things, spiritually speaking, that we're going to hear Russell Brand talk about that, to a degree, we also are going to agree with. We're going to agree, because he's using a sort of Christian morality, we're going to agree to some of these things. We're going to agree to a transformation and perspective through spiritual enlightenment or spiritual advancement. Yeah, that is part of our news. That is part of our understanding as Christians, that the moral framework and the sinful nature that we have, that the less we sin, the more truth we can see, the more like God we're becoming. So this idea of divinizing man, he fully believes in. We too believe in that, Russell. But how does man become a God? And we would say we become gods by grace through the incarnation of Christ. So I got a clip of him talking about Jesus and why he has a Jesus. Actually, it's on this arm. He has a crucifixion on his bicep, and talking about Christ's consciousness and all this thing. And he keeps talking about how his consciousness is divine consciousness, that God is consciousness, it's unitary consciousness. And so in a way, that's his divinizing process, which is consistent with, again, all the sort of panpsychic worldviews, whether it be Alan Watts, whether it be Eckhart Tolle, which is a major inspiration for him. And again, shout out to Nick Edmonds. Shout out to the Nick Edmonds for sponsoring tonight's stream. Again, everybody give him some thumbs up and a thanks for tonight's stream. But Russell Brand's going to be talking about vibes and energy. Well, again, we engage directly with God through the uncreated energies of God as Eastern Orthodox Christians. And so the way then Brand talks about Christianity, it's a fusion of Western Christianity and then New Age Christ consciousness Christianity. And so, but Christ, again, how do we actually become divinized? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He believes in the death of the body. He believes that we're just a brief moment in time. He believes in again, I watched so many clips of Russell Brand in preparation for today's stream. Some of them, I don't even know if I'll have them. I've watched so many, but one was a meditation practice he did with Mooji. Mooji is another sort of Indian guru type figure. I think he's actually from the Caribbean, maybe. I forget where exactly Mooji is from, but he was somebody I used to listen to back in the day. And everything is about how the future is an illusion, the past is an illusion. The only thing that exists is the present moment. But then again, right there in that spiritual teaching, Brand also believes in the Big Bang. He also believes in macro evolution. He also believes in Darwinian Wallace theory. So that would insinuate that time and space-time actually had a beginning point with the Big Bang. So time then and the present moment isn't eternal. We will notice that eternity and infinity, these concepts that, again, we relegate only to God. Only God can be characterized by these things, because as Christians, we believe creation was created. And so he talks about then how God created us in other videos. In other videos, we are God. He believes that sort of the space and time are eternal and infinite. Yet at the same time, he believes and promotes the idea of sort of Darwinian Wallace theory of evolution and macroevolution. It's a conflation of paradigms. They don't actually make sense. There's something there's a fundamental contradiction there. And so we'll see that he, like so many of the New Agers, privilege unity over multiplicity. And really this then is their sort of spiritual paradigm. The spiritual progress of this worldview is always eradicating the multiplicities, or usually what it is coming to the realization that they're an illusion. That physical reality, again, the Sanskrit concept of Maya, that the world is illusionary. Right? This is the same thing, the idea of the Matrix, that we're in the Matrix. You got to get out of the Matrix. And we have a clip with him and Eckhart Tolle on how to escape the Matrix. But as I've showed before, Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, so many of these they all promoted the stabbies. They all promote the same exact worldview. I mean, I have a video with him and Sadhguru and Noah Harari. Here, let me show you this real quick. This is Russell Brand with Noah Harari. Well, we all know Noah Harari. He's the one that the big Israeli transhumanist that believes, that believes humans are sort of antiquated. A lot of people are going to have to die in this great reset. That he's basically the sort of priest figure of whatever religion that you want to talk about, the sort of global elites or Schwab and his buddies. I don't even know what it is, but he's been referred to as sort of their priest, their sort of theological, their religious spiritual leader, Noah Harari. And he's all about eradicating your free will. As I've talked about, the eradication of the image of God, right? Logic, reason, love, mercy, compassion, all these things that we have to do to people, not abstractions. And we'll notice that Russell Brand's God is a complete abstraction. It's consciousness, it's cosmic consciousness itself. Well, can I touch cosmic consciousness? Can I talk to it? Like, how do I get? No, my God's personal. And again, we see how the Trinity is both one, God in essence, unified, and three persons, multiplicity. And you notice that this new age, these sort of spiritual ideas, it's always about getting back to the unity, getting back to God, getting back to the cosmic consciousness, and everything else is an illusion. And I've talked about demonic kenosis. Kenosis is the Neoplatonic concept that God is a dot, and then there's concentric circles around the dot. And that, again, we have to get back to the ideal realm. We have to get back to God. We do that through moving through, usually theurgically or magically, these sort of barriers, these emanations. Well, the kenosis, then, the dissolving of these boundaries to get back to total unity, consistent with his worldview. And so we see then that at a paradigmatic, at a foundational framework of worldview, the privileging of unity over multiplicity is totally consistent with what I call demonic kenosis, or what you want to call panpsychism, New Age, the spiritual but not religious thing, or whatever it is that Russell Brand is advocating for people. That there has to be objective standards, and certainly he believes in objective truth, or he wouldn't be making content about Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset. Yet at the same time, the validation and justification for his entire spiritual teachings are rooted within his own personal experience, subjective relativism. And that is a part of this sort of lacking of metaphysical sophistication. And again, we're going to let him tell us it all himself. His belief in the Big Bang and evolution contradicts then his spiritual claims about time and space being eternal and infinite. Again, the privileging of unity over multiplicity, that his God is a pure abstraction. Again, something that orthodoxy criticizes over and over and over again, that God isn't abstract. God is personal. God is so personal that God became a man so man can become gods by grace. That is orthodox theosis. That is the way that we understand divination. Where for Russell Brand, we're going to see that it's just a sort of elevation of perspective until you've reached enlightenment. And so, ironically, we're also going to, something that I want you guys to keep in mind as we move through his videos, that he constantly uses a Christian morality. Right, he has the chakras on his arm, one of the arms. One of the arms have chakras. He has the chakras. He has a crucified cross. He has the Om symbol. Then he has Sanskrit on the inside of one of his arms. He's got all these types of sort of religious symbolism. And yet, when he talks about the state of the world or how we need to treat other people, he always uses a Christian morality. Because if all those Om and the Sanskrit and the Vedic lines that he has, so we should probably then go back to the Indian culture, which then that Brahmanic culture, that Vedic-rooted culture, which then has the caste system and different understandings of races, and certainly a more stricter understanding of the roles of women. It's not a feminist society by any means. I mean, India is slowly becoming. You can certainly find transgenders or sort of betwixt figures within Hinduism or India, generally speaking. They probably are much more. I don't know. The West is probably so far gone now that we're more in favor of that stuff than they are. But generally speaking, there was a place for sort of half spirits in the Native American context. But we'll notice, and I want you guys to notice, how he talks about unity versus multiplicity, how the moral framework that he uses to talk about the world is almost entirely Christian, wrapped up then within the New Age and the sort of spiritual but not religious language. Again, this language of unity over multiplicity is wrapped up. And so you'll see that he's very much in favor of social justice. social justice warriors. He's currently working on, according to him, he's working on a dissertation. So I don't know, again, what university or what structure he's in. I don't know if is he doing a PhD? Is he working with somebody? I'm not sure. He said he goes to school part-time, and he's working on a dissertation on religious studies and politics or something like that. I'm not sure. But we'll see, again, focus on the Christian undertones of his morality. And so he comes out and he is a perennialist. And so he sees his sort of spiritual, the social justice warriors, the feminism, the LGBTQ, whatever. He's very much, we need to protect those people. We need to move in that direction. Again, that is societal evolution for him. That is societal progress. That this is all movement. This is all the elevation of consciousness. This is all us growing as a sort of species into the people that who use God. Then God created us to be, which, again, we're either God or we're not God. He says he is God, but then at other points he'll say, no, we're created by God. And so it's like, well, what are you talking? And that's that conflation of paradigms. Notice as we move through here how many times the foundations of his worldview contradict one another, right? This isn't a systematized worldview. Right, this is a hodgepodge of different concepts, and that's why it's ironic he has Sadhguru on as this great insight and this great spiritual leader, and he's talking about depopulating the planet and participating in the World Economic Forum or whatever it was in India, and talking about how he wants more people to die. He doesn't agree with all these Christians who want more people to be here on the planet, more people to live, more people to experience creation or be given the blessing to be alive as God obviously intended them to be. No, he would prefer people to be gone and that the planet's overpopulated. And so how is it that Russell Brand criticizes Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, the billionaire class that's totally reorienting Western society, and then he has these spiritual gurus that agree with all of them? Russell, what's going on here, man? And so by the end of all my research for today's stream, I don't hate Russell Brand. I honestly think what Russell Brand is, and that's what I began, is he's the perfect example of a contemporary seeker. I think he's sincere. I just think that he doesn't see how he himself is not rooted, again, philosophically, theologically, metaphysically, in any sort of justified grounding to then have a spiritual worldview. And that's part of the perennialist problem, right? Perennialism itself is that dissolution of boundaries, the dissolution of distinctions between worldviews, between religions, between spirituality. So then spirituality, as we'll see for him, it's just like human experience. Spirituality is just, we all need to become more spiritual. Well, what's spirituality? Well, sit there quietly. It's like, well, that's not spirituality. I mean, spirituality, yes, is a sort of personal experience of something transcendent. But it's all spiritualities are contextualized within a larger paradigm of understanding, a web of association, a web of meaning. And so not all spiritualities are equal spiritualities. And if there is objective truth, which obviously there is, not all spiritualities and not all religions are equally true. And so the perennial problem is, as you've heard me say before, anybody who believes that all religions lead to the same mountaintop, perennialism, have to, one, come up with a justification for how that could be the case, given that the epistemologies, the ethics, and the metaphysics of each of these religions, they themselves are different. They may share similarities. They may have differences. But there's only so many paradigms we can have. And some of these different worldviews, yes, will map on to others very well. Paganism and animism and shamanism. Yep, basically same paradigm. Bop, 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 bop. But unfortunately, for Russell, again, being a perennialist, like what framework of analysis, what metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics are you using to judge and analyze all these different systems and all these different world traditions that are different times of creation, different social circumstances, different races and ethnicities of people, different languages and presuppositions of understanding and perspective? What framework are you using? And again, you realize they're not using one at all. They've come up with their own, and they basically just put their arms around a bunch of ideas in the spiritual supermarket and created some sort of hodgepodge of contemporary spirituality. But they themselves inherently contradict each other. But if you don't believe in objective truth, then contradictions don't really matter. And so that's another point. Does Russell Brand believe in objective logic and truth? At times it seems like he does. At times he says it sounds like he doesn't. It's hard to say. But that's why I think Russell Brand, I don't hate him. I think that he's really indicative of where many people are currently and where many of us were. Right? I think as we watch today's videos of him talking, yeah, we're going to have some chuckles. We're going to have some giggles at the internal contradictions and some of the silliness and the metaphors. But we're probably there about 4 or 5 years ago, right? Just because we're in different places and the sort of seriousness in which we've taken our spirituality and developed these ideas further, in a way, that's why I don't hate the guy. It's like I kind of see myself 5 years ago in him, but then you look at his stuff and he's saying the exact same thing he said 7, 8 years ago. And you're thinking, well, Russell, and that's where I see the criticism of the globalism, the World Economic Forum. It's just like a sort of new frontier. Maybe this is Russell Brand's sort of Jordan Peterson moment. He's had Candace Owens and Peterson on his show or whatnot, but I mean, in the sense of breaking out of a sort of box, questioning certain presuppositions. He hasn't done it yet, because he hasn't seen that he himself spiritually promotes the same concepts, the same paradigm as that of Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and those forces that he actually criticizes. He doesn't realize that when he looks out into the world and sees what's going on currently after 2020, that he's actually promoting those people. And that's what we have right here. Look at him. He's literally kissing Noah Harari. What? Yes, exactly. And so as we... one of these clips I have is going to be of Sadhguru. And so I think you guys have already seen the clip where he talked about how he wanted depopulation and all that. But and so we'll also see this emphasis, again, this Christian morality is going to have him be focusing on love, and unity, and how love unifies all things. And that's why love is love, guys. Right? You can't question love because love unifies. But love in this sort of social justice warrior, perennialistic, new age context is just the acceptance of all things. That's apparently love. But that's not love in the Bible. Christ loved people so much that he confronted them on a one-to-one level, on a person-to-person level, not abstraction, not cosmic consciousness, as a man to their face on a personal level, that they must change what they're doing and follow him. And as they do that, their life reorients, they change, their understanding changes, and they become divinized by walking in those energies, right? Those uncreated energies. So when he talks about vibrations and energy, I can basically get on board with a lot of that. Again, as Orthodox Christian, that's our theology. That's how we engage directly with God. But his whole framework of Christianity is basically sort of Anglican. I mean, it's like a mixture of Protestantism and Catholicism. It's that whole thing. So, he like I said, he doesn't realize that he's fighting the exact agenda that his worldview leads to. For example, he's a vegetarian and a vegan, so he doesn't eat meat. And yet he's criticizing the World Economic Forum, which knows that red meat and meat, generally speaking, is essential for male production of testosterone. And so he doesn't engage in the eating of meat. He's okay with people eating less meat. He's pushing the agenda of people eating less meat. Yet that is exactly the agenda of Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, the same people that, again, he criticizes. The no private property. You'll hear him talk in different places, because I have clips of him in different years. I think there's like a 7 or 8 year span that I have here, that he's against the capitalistic system and the means of production, but he's not a full capital or communist. But socialism certainly has a lot of positive benefits, and that private property and all. But now he sees that the World Economic Forum literally tells you you're not going to own nothing and you're going to like it, and now he's critical of it. But Russell, just a couple years ago you said private property was something that was bad. You just talked about capital as something that is bad. He speaks out against the vaccine mandates, But again, his worldview of total unity is partly of this system of the dissolution of boundaries, between you and the pharmaceutical industry, the dissolution of boundaries between you and being a genetically modified organism, of which anybody who's taken it is. They are, in fact, a genetically modified organism. And so it's funny that his spirituality then aids the lack of eating meat and sort of his very feminist, ecocentric approach. You see that he's totally in line then with the sort of anti-masculinity agenda that's happening in the Western world. Now, would he say that? No, of course not. He wouldn't say I'm anti-masculinity, but just look at what he professes throughout these videos. Look at what he's speaking about. It is the Gaia religion. It is the sort of understanding that, we have to get back to a sort of feminine, goddess-centered sort of spirituality. But he also make claims that he doesn't worship the planet. He worships God as abstract cosmic consciousness. That is who he argues God is. And so we see, again, the abstraction, the privileging of unity aids absolutely in the transhumanist project, aids absolutely in again this larger demonic kenosis. And so as he argues against the economic destruction of the Western world, we'll watch videos where he's absolutely in favor of the Western economic structure being destroyed. So maybe he's probably critical of what's going to come with the World Economic Forum at hand, but I don't know. He doesn't give a whole lot of option, but we'll listen to some of this stuff. And so I think he has not connected a lot of the conspiracies that you and I already take for granted. Like we get, the education system, critical race theory. We get the politics, the globalism, the one world government, the Great Reset, Agenda 21. We get the mass immigration, the flooding, the changing of demographics, the de-empowering of Western peoples. We see the anti-masculinity, the promotion of feminism, the absolute criticism and condemning of traditional masculinity. We see the anti-meat agenda so that men produce less testosterone. And so he just has not connected how he's basically has 1 foot in the right direction, 1 foot out in the wrong direction, and doesn't see how they're critical, doesn't see how they're in opposition to each other. And so I would say that, unfortunately, Russell, he's beginning, I think, questioning and realizing, his condemnation of Trump and maybe Trump was right. Again, we're not promoting Trump in any way, but it shows how maybe he's stepping out, questioning, and diving a little bit deeper into these sort of conspiracy theorist rabbit holes that clearly he has not fully connected yet. So with that being said, guys, let me do a quick housekeeping, and then we are going to dive straight into Russell Brand probably for the next well over an hour. I got tons of clips. And so first thing I want to do is, again, give a special shout out. This is a sponsored stream. So shout out to Nick Edmonds, the Nick Edmonds, for sponsoring tonight's stream, guys. If you too would like to sponsor a stream, say you have a stream topic that you would like for me to dive into, you can do so by clicking that link there and purchasing basically a stream. You then sponsor the stream, you give me the topic, and you are purchasing my research hours to devote my attention to presenting and bringing together a presentation on your desired topic. And so if that's something you might be interested in, click that link and decide that maybe you want to sponsor a stream too. So again, special shout out for today's stream to Nick Edmonds. Thank you so much, Nick, for sponsoring today's stream. Again, we have, for the previously sponsored streams, we had Gregory Ivy with the Orthodox marriage, monasticism versus Orthodox martyrdom, marriage versus monasticism. Then we had Pim and the Khazarian Empire. And so now we have Nick with the spirituality of Russell Brand, which initially he wanted me to do it on Russell Brand, Eckhart Tolle, and a gentleman named Rupert Spire. So I looked into it. Rupert Spire, I wasn't very familiar with him. And then I've talked before about Eckhart Tolle multiple times, but I've never talked about Russell Brand, obviously a bigger name, but deconstructing Russell Brand's worldview is deconstructing Eckhart Tolle. So as I mentioned to Nick, Nick Thank you, brother. I hope you're not disappointed with tonight's stream, but I did decide to focus more on Russell Brand as a sort of vortex to bring together, congeal all these ideas together. So if you'd like to sponsor a stream, you can do so there. Also, the best way to support Church of the Eternal Logos is to become a website member. We have a $5 a month membership where you can get access to exclusive video content, of which I got new videos up. I got my Montanica speech. I got a Orthodox review of the Northmen, and I got some more clips on technosis that are going to be coming. So if you want to check out exclusive video content, click that link, become a website member. Or if you'd like to participate in our Thursday meetings for premium members, where we have a sort of secret, not too secret, but a sort of exclusive conversation on Zoom, you can do that for $25 a month as well. Also, guys, if anybody wants to purchase a one-on-one session for this coming Thursday, next Thursday, you can do so with that link right there. So with that being said, guys, smash that like. We are now going to dive deep into the Russell Brand and hear his spiritual teachings, and I'll give you my criticisms. And so let's see here. First thing is first. Let's pull this up. All right, here we go. So to dive to, obviously we need to know who we're talking about here. We're talking about Russell Brand, right? His career started as a comedian, later becoming a MTV presenter. In 2004, Brand gained a role as the host of Big Brother's Big Mouth and a Big Brother spinoff. In 2007, he had his first major film at St. Trinian's. In the following, he landed a major role in the romantic comedy drama Forgetting Sarah Marshall. The film led him to starring in a spinoff called Get Him to the Greek alongside Jonah Hill, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so then he became a very prominent movie star, right, from Grays, Essex in England. He's 47 years old, and yeah. So then you start looking at his personal life here, and so I thought this was a good description of him. So look, he is, and as of 2019, he is a vegan. According to his autobiography on Goodreads, Brand dresses in a flamboyant bohemian fashion. He has been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and bipolar disorder. He also suffered from bulimia, pornography addiction, and experienced a period of self-harming. Brand has described the concept of fame as like ashes in his mouth. Brand used to be a Buddhist. Now he believes in a higher power as described by Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think that is noticeable in his journey. Is when you look at some of his more recent stuff, certainly he has a little bit of a more positive spin on talking about a deity, God, talking about a creator God, this type of thing. Obviously, Buddhism would never speak like that. And so you'll see like some of his old stuff is much more sort of New Age Buddhism, the Western Buddhism. And then the more recent stuff it's more like a New Age deity, consciousness deity type thing. So definitely, I think the Alcoholics Anonymous has, obviously they take a lot of steps from Christianity, their whole 12-step process that I would say that certainly has had effect on him. Russell Brand is sober, and so he's been in sobriety for, I think, 16 years is what he said in one of his movements. Brand has shown interest in the Hare Krishna movement and wrote in a 2007 Guardian column, "I say Hare Krishna as often as possible, sometimes even when I'm not being filmed." So he sometimes says it when he's not being filmed. Interesting. Additionally, during an interview on the Ellen DeGeneres show in October 2010, Brand talked about his love of transcendental meditation. This love of transcendental meditation was reaffirmed in a 2013 New Statesman editorial. He wrote, quote, "Through transcendental meditation twice daily, I feel the bliss of the divine. I connect to a boundless consciousness that has no palpable relationship to my thoughts, fears, or desires." He's also gravitated towards Christian spirituality. Oh, really? And practice daily reciting the Lord's Prayer and attempting to have Christ consciousness. Well, that's not exactly Christian spirituality, but I do like that he says the Lord's Prayer. I guess that's a good start. In 2011, Brand served as best man at Noel Gallagher's wedding to Sarah McDonald. Since 2016, Brand has been training in the martial art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and has earned a purple belt in the discipline. He credits the art with improving his life in several ways. Brand lives in Henley-on-Thames. He is a lifelong supporter of the West Ham United Football Club. Okay. All right. So now, here is a video of him. Geez, which one do I start with? Which one do I start with? I don't even know. I guess we'll start with this one and see the kind of company. So this one. This video is him. He has apparently just earned a position in some type of magazine as, I guess he's a top 10 spiritual guru in the world now. He's on a list along with the Pope, the Dalai Lama, Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra. And notice how they're all part of the same worldview. Again, notice that the Pope, because he speaks very glowingly of Pope Francis. We as traditional Christians and traditional Catholics obviously aren't big fans of Pope Francis. We know of his being sort of groomed by a known communist. And we see how he is challenging many of the norms and traditions of Christianity, of Catholicism, Pope Francis. I mean, banning the traditional Latin Mass. But we'll see how Russell Brand views him as a beautiful spiritual leader in the world, and views himself, along with all these different people, as sort of moving the world in the same direction. I would say, yeah, it kind of is the same direction. It's the direction where you privilege unity over multiplicity. And so he talks about Greta Thunberg as another, I guess she made the list as a spiritual leader, spiritual guru. I don't even get it. But he talks about how wonderful she is and protecting the environment and from the global climate change and all this different stuff. So, yeah. So I'm going to try to cut in and out of this just because these clips off The Awakening with Russell and his YouTube channel, they are monetized by his channel, and I don't want to get this stream taken down, so I really need to make sure I stop it every probably minute or so. So we'll be cutting up these clips. We're not going to let too many of them just play for long periods of time. But anyway, this is the first one. This is how spiritual I am. This is Russell Brand.
My Awakening side channel, just lighting a candle because, as you know, I'm well spiritual. I don't know if you've seen Watkins' Mind, Body, Spirit magazine, but I'm one of the world's most spiritualist people. In fact, I'm not far behind the likes of Pope, Dalai Lama, Greta Thunberg, Sadhguru, Eckhart Tolle, Desmond Tutu, God rest his soul, Oprah Winfrey. Then it's me, old Russ, the 8th spiritualist geezer in the world. That's pretty good, isn't it? That's pretty good going. Now,
I mean, I personally wouldn't want to be on a list with any of those people myself, given, again, what they're doing to the world right now. I mean, Oprah, no. Greta Thunberg, really? I mean, you have an autistic girl that's groomed by a fame-seeking mother and creating all these photo ops that you talk about nonsense and, again, totally aid in the great reset of society. I mean, again, look, this video right here is from this year. This is from February 2022. How is it that Russell can talk critically of Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset, and yet he's also, as you're getting ready to see, speak glowingly of Greta Thunberg? Well, what do you think she is, and what do you think she's contributing to? Come on.
Obviously, something like spirituality is impossible, actually, to say who's the most spiritual person, although you would assume that Pope Francis and the Dalai Lama have got to be up there after their lives of pure devotion. What's interesting to me is I've been on a wide variety of lists in my life. 2012, worst dressed man. I've been sexiest man before in something. Oh no, 33rd. Hold on, let me see where I was in sexiness. I was the 9th sexiest man in Essex. I was the 37th sexiest man in 2010. That's actually 12 years ago. Since then, I've had to migrate into spiritual lists. I suppose what these lists really are is an opportunity for this magazine to promote itself. But why not? We're talking about spirituality. This, after all, is a spiritual channel. And one thing that I was really pleased to note is that so many of the people in this list have been on Under the Skin, my podcast on Luminary. Sadhguru, he's been on. Eckhart Tolle, Gabor Mate, Wim Hof, Joe Dispenza, Dispenza, David Lynch, Deepak Chopra, Jay Shetty, Michael Pollan, Marianne Williamson, Graham Hancock, Rupert Sheldrake, the great Vandana Shiva, Julia Cameron, Michael Beckwith, Muji, Bruce Lipton.
Okay, so again, look at all these people. These are people that are spiritual leaders that are on this list, whatever list he has. They're also all been interviewed by him on his podcast. They all have the same paradigm. They all have the same thing. Right? I don't care what label they call themselves. I'm interested in the foundations of looking at paradigms themselves. Their metaphysics, their epistemology, and their ethics. That's how you look at a worldview. That's what I'm interested in. Michael Pollan, Berkeley professor. I have his, Turning on Your Mind, promoting psychedelics, promoting sort of progressive politics. Sadhguru, World Economic Forum. Wim Hof, Eastern mystical spirituality. Muji, same. Deepak Chopra, same. Rupert Sheldrake, former psychonaut, biologist, professor. Same sort of perennial spiritual worldview. I mean, Rupert Sheldrake has some good things to say. I'm not against him. He developed the morphogenetic field theory. Eckhart Tolle, David Lynch, Julia Cameron, Graham Hancock, all the same worldview. Bruce Lipton, Vandana Shiva, Marianne Williamson, The Secret, Gabor Mate, Joe Dispenza. I mean, it's all, again, you see, it's all actually the same thing. It's all the same thing.
Edith Eger, Michael Singer, Byron Katie, Charles Eisenstein, Gabrielle Bernstein, all have been on Under the Skin, available from Luminary for a small subscription. If there is a valuable point to be drawn from this, firstly, I'm not getting on any of them style lists again anytime soon, I suppose. The most important thing, I think, is that spirituality is something we're all becoming increasingly aware of, and new ways of talking about spirituality is going to become increasingly vital as we recognise that our old paradigms and templates are shifting and falling apart. The reason spirituality will be vital is because all of us are going to have to learn to look inside ourselves and discover new resources. I'll give you one obvious.
So, okay, spirituality. Go look inside ourselves, find new resources. What about the Satanists? What about the person that their spirituality is actually creating more chaos? What about a person whose spirituality is about vengeance? What about somebody whose spirituality is rooted in a sort of traditional pagan Nordic system where honors the highest thing and taking out one's vengeance and killing somebody, i.e. the Northman, is part of their spirituality and part of their tradition? Is that the advancement that you're talking about, Russell? Oh, you're talking about Christianity mixed with the sort of Eastern mystical global rhetoric.
Gotcha. Example. We're going to have to find ways of reaching out to people that hold different opinions on seemingly vital subjects. We're going to have to get beyond our own political classifications and find new ways of mutually cooperating in order to create new systems. Because it's clear to me, and I know it's clear to you as well, that we can't go on in the direction we're heading for much longer. I suppose let's look at some of the people on this list. Pope Francis, obviously a new pope who's attempting to do things for Catholicism, it seems to me, in a new way, opening his heart in ways that previous popes wouldn't have been able to, having an open mind to social justice issues, for example, that would have been unthinkable 10 or 20 years ago.
Yes, Pope Francis he's been doing so many good things for the Christian community and the church. Again, you see, his glowing support for Pope Francis is totally rooted within the social justice warrior, globalist, unity over multiplicity spiritual worldview of a sort of pursuit for utopia. That is it. His spiritual worldview, and really that's what all these systems are, whether it be the social justice warriors, whether it be Russell Brand, whether it be the New Age. It's like all these different people are aiding in the same sort of demonic kenosis, the unity, the same sort of global reset due to their desire for like a utopia. They believe utopia is coming.
Greta Thunberg, a campaigner who has brought environmental issues and ecology to the forefront of people's minds in a way that's vital, being representative, as she is, by virtue of who she is, of youth and femininity and a kind of, a devoted, saintly dedication to the issue that defines her. Sadhguru, an electrifying teacher and a kind of, a rock and roll swami. Eckhart Tolle, I think, for me, I understand spirituality at depth in ways that are simple by reading Eckhart Tolle, perhaps more than any.
I find Eckhart Tolle, he is so boring. That's one of the reasons why I didn't even want to include videos of him today. I have one with him with Russell Brand. I can't get through Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle. The them speaking the nonsense, the sort of, it's just rhetoric. It's spiritual rhetoric that they contradict themselves. I can't listen to it too much, and it puts me to sleep.
Desmond Tutu, a campaigner, a devoted man, and who, as a friend and collaborator of Nelson Mandela, literally changed the world, changed issues around race, and contributed to the end of apartheid in South Africa. Even if you just take those few, you like start to understand the importance of change, devotion, dedication, inclusivity, a willingness to apply your spirituality to political activism. I was really heartened to see so many of the people on this list had been guests on our podcast, Under the Skin, as well as academics and scientists and radicals and controversial thinkers. We have a lot of people with
controversial figures. Do you really think he could have any controversial figures on? No, they're all part of the same agenda. So let's move on here. I just wanted to lay that out so you can get a general frame for his own worldview and where he sees himself in relationship to other people that we are quite critical of, to say the least. So here we go. Let's do one of these. This is does Russell Brand believe in God? Let's hear what he says and how he defines God. And this again is from this year, guys. This is from February of 2022. This video.
You believe in God. What kind of idea do you have of God?
A limitless, benevolent oneness, that the consciousness in me right now, the experience of being me, looking out of my eyes at you, is the same experience you're having as well, but with the variants and variations that have come from your individual experience, and probably some biochemical distinctions as well. But through meditation, we could achieve a place of oneness and connection. I believe that God is unity, that the reason that love feels good is because love is a truth, that there is a connection between people, whether it's the love of Newcastle United, your dog, a family member, or whatever. What is it? Is a kind of an attempt to unify and connect with that thing. I believe.
And I would say we probably don't disagree too far with Russell there. God, again, separator, major metaphysical distinction. We have a creator, which is infinite and eternal. And then we have a creation, which by definition, by being created, cannot be those things. The universe, in my worldview, having a creator God can't by definition be infinite and eternal, because that would insinuate it has no beginning point. So our worldview, we believe God created the world due to love. He wanted something to experience divine love. And so he created a creation with mankind, creatures that are the epitome of creation. Because that's another thing, is for his worldview, there's absolutely no distinction between mankind and animals. We are apes in his worldview. So we are monkeys coming out of the African canopy and growing into the people that we are today. But you'll see that our God is different from his God in the sense that, yes, we do understand God to be quote unquote love. I think Orthodox, what we said is love is the mode of God. It's the vehicle. When God moves, it is love. But we don't make cataphatic or positive claims about the essence of God. So we wouldn't say the essence of God is love, because that is to put a God in a box. That is to define God positively. We would say love is an uncreated energy of God. Maybe it's the ultimate energy. Maybe all the energies somehow are leading to the expression of love. And so love then is the mode and the relationship that God created creation, so creation and creatures could then participate in something that is divine and transcendent. And that is love, and that is unity. But our love with God does not destroy our identity. We do not become consciousness or me being David Patrick Carey is an illusion. This is part of my ego complex. This is an egoic structure that needs to be smashed because really I'm just a temporal substantiation of consciousness itself. Well, we understand ourselves to be made in the image of God, which allows us to participate in all these higher faculties that he then conglomerates together as consciousness. So we say, no, I'm made in the image of God. That's why I can use language. That's why I can have reason. That's why I can participate in logic and love and mercy and truth and honor and glory and righteousness and justice. All these things we would say are higher faculties. Animals don't participate in them. We do because we're made in the image of God. And so it's those energies, those vibrations, those realities that we engage with to directly engage with God. I think he probably wouldn't disagree too much with that general schematic. However, he just compresses all these attributes, all these cognitive abilities, these higher faculties into quote unquote consciousness. It's just consciousness.
The physical realm, the material world, is just one bandwidth of reality for which we have the sensory instruments. And because the only sensory instruments we have are for this particular material plane, sight, sound, smell, taste, whatever, that we think of that as the sum total of reality. But it is not inconceivable that there would be other instruments that detect entirely different realms of reality. And even within the stratas of reality that we can receive, we know that bats and dolphins and whales and other creatures and cats see other light and hear other sound. So we're living in a curated reality. We know that people that have psychedelic or near-death experiences encounter reality that's entirely different. There are phenomena that are excluded continually from the conversation because if it's true that we're all one, then systems of hierarchy and domination and exploitation and destruction would have to radically review the way that the world is undertaken. If all that really matters is your life as an individual, you're born, you live, you die, if that's all reality is, then why bother to cultivate a beautiful world? If the only things are real are the things that you can measure, then why explore the limitless space within us as well as the limitless space without us? When we talk about science, what we mean is the area of science that is well funded. No one's spending a lot of money to discover whether or not inexpensive substances can heal mental health issues because we live in a profit-driven society. We don't notice or recognize that we live in a fundamentalist ideology. When remember 10 years ago when people were much more sort of scared about radical Islam and stuff, when terrorism was the thing that was used to keep us in check back then, those nostalgic days, we talked about fundamentalism. Now, but we also forget that we live in a fundamentalist ideology where we're constantly bombarded with commercial ideas and an ideology that continually underwrites that, when you cannot escape screens, when you cannot escape.
Sounds like he's equating fundamentalism to a sort of negative concept. And I would say that's actually one of the foundational critiques of his worldview, is that he has no foundation. There is no fundamentals. There is no basis. It's ethereal. It's in the air. It's abstract. It's a conglomeration. It's actually consumeristic. Ironically, as we listen to his critiques of capitalist society and the effects it's had on the world, he himself is the most consumeristic person in the way that he's pursuing his own spirituality. Who would be, by accommodating and appropriating all these different traditions to be this fully enlightened, that actually is consumerism. You, my friend, are embodying the consumeristic mentality that is actually sort of hollowing out, quote unquote, spirituality and really all the world religions, generally speaking.
The constant scream of commodification. We live in a radical society. It's a radical, try and get out of it. Try and not obey it. Try and live your own life. And then you'll see what the reality is you live within. So my belief in God is that what we call reality is only a small piece of reality, and accessible to us within us is something that is very deep and powerful. C.S. Lewis, who wrote Lion, Rich and Wardrobe, all that stuff, he wrote a book called Mere Christianity, and in that book, Mere Christianity, he says, look, where do values come from? Where does it come from, the idea that you're meant to be kind to one another, that you're meant to be loving?
Yes, where do they come from, Russell?
Goes, you get one society where a person might be married to 5 husbands or wives, and you get another society where people might just have one wife, but you don't get a society where people are applauded for running away in battle. If someone gives up their seat to you on public transport and you don't say thank you, you know that ain't right. If someone gives you something, you don't give it back to them, you know that ain't right. Something in your body lets you know. People go out their way.
It's almost like Christian morality was written on the heart or something like that. I remember Paul wrote that in the New Testament.
to come up with ideas like reciprocal altruism. We're evolved because in the days when we was in tribes, if someone done something nice, so therefore we're rewarded. There's so much complexity in anatomy, just the evolution of an eye, that it's beyond material explication. Of course, you can create a narrative around anything, but the narratives that we create around a godless, atheistic, materialistic universe are fundamentalist. They are a choice. It's not empiricism. It's not this is the facts. This is a set of facts. And by coincidence, this set of facts advances the agenda of the powerful, weirdly. So,
Ho, ho, ho. Ironically, again, we'll see that part of his own worldview does exactly that. And that's where I'm saying Russell, he doesn't realize that a lot of the things he's criticizing, and this is 2022, this is a newer interview, a lot of the things he's criticizing now, he's also ironically participating in through his spirituality.
I believe in God because I believe there are different layers of reality that are accessible, and I've been in them.
Do you, because I'm quite interested to listen to your podcast. I think there's a lot of really great guests on there that you manage to explore people from the right, people like Ben Shapiro, and then there's people like Jordan Peterson somewhere in between that, and then there's people on the left as well. Do you think there is a particular ideology that's getting it right at the moment? Like, do you think there is Islam or is Christianity? Do you think those things are important in the world?
I think that it's important to have a set of principles and values. I don't really have a...
Are certain principles and values better than other certain principles and values, or is it all just a sort of utilitarian effect? It's all just practical, pragmatic means?
In fact, what I mostly believe is that people should not judge other people's sets of ideologies or lack of ideologies. I believe in a kind of libertarian anarchism where people should be able to form their own communities with their own values. And if you don't agree with those values, you should just go, oh, cool, all right. You know, like whether it's people's gender identity or people having a very strict religious set of principles. If they're practicing that within their community, then I don't think it's anybody else's business. But in order to radically change reality, there will have to be some correspondence and some coordination and some collaboration. So there does, at some level, need to be a kind of confederacy. I feel that ultimately, the big distraction that is continually undertaken is the fact is, like, say, just take the example of football. Of course, it's very easy to hate Sunderland fans or Tottenham fans or Millwall fans or whatever it is that, you know, but it's sort of, you know, really it's kind of a game because you've got people that you love that support those football teams. It's an artificial difference. I think these differences are true with most of the talking points in the news around left-right politics, etc. these days, that what we have to look for is alliance, because the people in positions of power, the institutions that are powerful, benefit from us continually being distracted. But
obviously, they benefit from our conflicts with each other, right? Divide and conquer. Okay.
By these minor notes. So I think, like, if I was hanging out with Muslims, I think I would like listen to them and think, oh yeah, these are the things that are true. If I'm hanging out with Christians or Buddhists or atheists or whatever, I've got, you know, Ricky Gervais has been on here and he's been on my podcast and he's like a pretty serious atheist, isn't he? But he has morals and values and loves animals and seems to think there's something very sacred.
Yeah, those are called metaphysical principles. You know, actually in a total atheist worldview, love is just an emotional response due to chemicals in the brain. That's not the same love you're talking about, Russell. That is a metaphysical reality. Those things then need metaphysical justification for how they exist. If you exist, you know, this is part of that foundation that he doesn't really have.
About animals, you know, and like, so and when I went on Rogan and he's into hunting and I'm a vegan, I think, well, I'm not going to sort of spend my time arguing with this geezer about some little trivial point, even though I really, really love animals and I don't think I would be able to fire a gun at a creature's head. I think that would be really far out for me to.
Again, you see the sort of effeminacy in regards to, again, the veganism, the vegetarian. I can understand maybe some people coming up with some, you know, monks obviously are vegetarian, but yeah, obviously this is, I would say it's part of the sort of the feminization in regards to the equation of mankind with animals. That's part of the sort of justification. Oh, how could you eat an animal? What if somebody did that to your child? Well, my child's not an animal. Again, because my child's made in the image of God and can participate in all these higher faculties that then he associates with just consciousness, generally speaking.
But I still feel like, well, why am I going to sort of like, when with someone I so clearly agree with a lot about, why would I bother to argue?
Because that's what everyone else does.
Right.
So that's 99% of the internet is. Right. There's your coffee. Is disagreeing with each other over the little things, because to some people that's all they see. And like who you support, it's the best kind of way to distract people from what is actually important.
Okay, now we got his idea of God, right? So now, oh crap! I just dang it. There we go. Here we go.
Is there a God? Where?
There, let's listen to his discussion on if he believes in a God and what God is again. So note again, focus on epistemology, knowledge, ethics, metaphysics. What type of worldview is he promoting?
God. I believe in God. I believe God to be the limitless consciousness, of which my own tiny little consciousness is but a part. That beneath my identity as an individual, my biochemical reactions, my memories, my impulses, is a witness, and that this limitless witness is probably no different to what you feel. I'm not saying that you and I are not different. You might be from, I don't know, Detroit or Colchester or Mumbai or Saudi Arabia or anywhere really. You might be from the next house to the one I grew up in and be really, really different from me. Geez, look at siblings. I've got a couple of them. They're very different from one another. But my belief is that consciousness itself is one. David Lynch, God love him, said that the Sanskrit form is one line and the characters come from the one line. This is the, what does he call it? The unified field, and all forms come from the unified field. Everything coming from oneness. I believe that as they go deeper into the microscopic world, they will discover, hold on a minute, everything is one. It's all interconnected. It's all just one thing, vibrating at different speeds, or some sort of weird holographic revelation that we're bursting through a membrane into this frequency, that the unmanifest is all about us, waiting to be born. Now, how does that relate to sort of the principles of religion or spirituality, such as kindness? Well, if we're all one, we might as well be nice to each other.
That's not necessarily a follow. There's plenty of worldviews, there's plenty of religions, there's plenty of countries and empires that have existed throughout history that believed in this general paradigm of unity over multiplicity, right? They're not equal, it's not both and. Multiplicity is somehow a diminution of unity. What did he just say?
Spirituality such as kindness. Well, if we're all one, we might as well be nice to each other.
If we're all one, there's plenty of empires that totally went to war, right? Paganism. You know, pagan societies existed throughout the world that it was about war and domination. Just the fact of us being all one, if you still believed in Darwinian Wallace theory of metaphysics, evolution, which is, again, a claim on to ontological reality, that if you believe that we're in an evolutionary process of development, well, then you believe that it's player versus player. It's survival of the fittest. That's a dominating system. That's not a system that promotes kindness. Kindness, a system that promotes kindness, is actually going against nature. That's part of these spiritual traditions that really advocate for it. And again, not all spiritual traditions are equal on this. But his emphasis on kindness and caring for other people is absolutely a Christian morality. It's absolutely Christian. It's not Islamic, right? Because Muslims have very different understandings of non-Muslims. It's not Buddhist, because that would be a sort of attachment, right? Wanting to be kind to the whole world. That's like some type of desirous attachment that's going to keep me from realizing my full potential. You could find aspects of it in Hinduism. Again, Hinduism is a conglomeration of a ton of different worldviews, but it's fundamentally Christian, right? He's fundamentally talking about a Christian morality wrapped up in an abstract, New Age, Eastern mystical, abstract God of consciousness.
all one. There's no sense competing with one another. Even when you look at an idea such as social Darwinism, derived from the theories of evolution, or the theory of evolution, although there were two, weren't there, because there was two people doing it simultaneously, more or less, that evolution itself is a force that's heading in a direction of what we could term progress, but is actually probably just movement towards efficiency. Why efficiency? Efficiency for what? Why life? Why live? What is this force that's making single cellular beings split, divide, grow, move for all those things, those graphs and that we've all seen, from fish to frog, from frog to whatever? You know, we all know the drill, don't we? What's driving this forward? Why? Is consciousness interacting with the environment in order to form more efficient machines? Some people go, there doesn't need to be a why, and that's completely up to them. But godlessness, the belief that there, or nihilism, let's call it, for like it's a less sort of divisive or troubling term. Godlessness leads to it doesn't feel right, does it? A world of competition, of crushing, of.
But he will talk about how he believes in our Darwinian Wallace theory of evolution, and that we are monkeys, and that through evolution and the domination of species, we've come to be the people we are. So again, we see a continual problem with Russell is a conflation of paradigms, and I will give it to him. Most people don't think about paradigms. People who think about paradigms are participating in systematic thinking, which the majority of people can't do or won't do. I would say, unfortunately, a lot of people can't critically think anymore, so they don't participate in a sort of systematic approach to these things. But we see a fundamental contradiction again.
Of superficiality, the options that start to occur when you believe you are an individual in limitless space that began with a bang that was preceded by nothing, that's flooding, sprawling into a limitless nowhere. It doesn't feel good. Now, just because something don't feel good, that's not a reason to deny it as a possibility. But given the fact that you can't prove that there is no limitless intelligent consciousness creating all material phenomena and providing us with these sort of conditions, these peculiar mathematical conditions, natural conditions, physical conditions that somehow make sense to us, there's no point in denying it just for the sake of it, just to be obtuse and difficult. Not when love and beauty and glory feel so good. I say this: act as if there is a God, and there is one. In the book of Job, when the higher self, the Yahweh, challenges the lower self, Job, the higher self, Yahweh.
See, so he has a total New Age hermeneutic, exegesis, interpretation of a written work, interpretation of Scripture, that Yahweh, God, the Father, which again, we only understand as Orthodox. So again, I'm actually Christian, Russell. That is the Logos. The entity of the Trinity that actually engages with people, God's backside on Mount Sinai with Moses, that's actually the Logos. That's actually Christ. That's actually the Word of God. That's actually the metaphysical basis for creation itself. That's the basis of order. That is the Logos that incarnated and is the communicator with us. Christ, the Logos, is the bridge between us and eternity.
God self tests the flesh self to see if it can connect with some deeper principles. Yahweh, the highest self, shows Job, here are the behemoth and the leviathan that I have made as I have made thee, the animal mammalian self, the dumb, staring sexual self, the appetite, the stomach, the thing that just wants to eat, the leviathan, the unconscious lizard self. It is possible for us to be dumb animals. It is possible for us to be unconscious, but it is also possible for us to be loving. Maybe if we are not loving, then there is no love. Maybe it is our job to create a God of love here on earth by being loving, precisely because if we don't act that way, then there isn't. Wave, particle, possibly both, possibly neither, infinite possibilities. Act as if love is everything. Act as if kindness is everything. Act as if we are all one, and see if that becomes our reality.
You see how basically what that is Christianity, love your neighbor as yourself. Really, so his entire ethic, the entire morality, the entire sort of ethical dimension of what he just spouted inside this rant of 5 minutes, all it is Christianity's love your neighbor as yourself. That equals love, kindness, other people. One little teaching, love your neighbor as yourself, Christianity. That's what he just used 100 different words to explain.
Or, you know, there might be something good on the telly. Maybe the sneakers will work for you. Maybe the next phone you get will be the answer, or the next relationship. Maybe. But I don't think so. Hello, I'm...
Okay, all right. All right. Here's him on Jesus. So you guys are going to really enjoy this one. This is why he has a Jesus tattoo. So Russell Brand, after he had kind of gone down this sort of Eastern mystical route, again, this video is from 2019, he went and he got a crucified cross on the front of his bicep. So this is 2019. This is he's been sober for, according to him, 16 years. So 16 years he's been sober. 16 years he's been advocating really advocating this sort of transcendental meditation, Eastern mystical worldview. And then he's explaining why he recently got a tattoo of a crucified cross. So let's hear his explanation for why a crucified cross.
Hello there. Let's talk about spirituality, particularly in the form of these tattoos. I got this tattoo done recently of Jesus Christ, the symbol of the resurrection, the possibility for divine God consciousness to be expressed through mankind. Whether or not you identify as a Christian, meaning you believe that Christ is the Son of God and that the Christian, or one particular branch of the Christian theology, is the answer to the problem of being alive and dying, and that Christ rose again. For me, that's not where I go with religion, because you'll notice just on this.
Yes. So he doesn't go with religion is looking at the internal differences and contradictions and why one might be more true than another. That's not where he goes.
Ganesh from the Vedic.
Ganesh is a wisdom deity inside the Hindu pantheon. He is the son of Shiva and is it Saraswati, I believe, and that the story of Ganesha, why he has the head of an elephant, is because Ganesha was home with his mother, and his dad Shiva, the destroyer, came home. His mother was in the shower and naked or some sort, and so he went to go check the door that his dad was at, and his father Shiva cut his head off because he thought another man saw his wife naked or something of that nature. And that's when then he realized it was his son that he just beheaded. And so he found the closest animal, and it was an elephant. And he took the head of the elephant and put it onto his son's body, and that is Ganesha. And that is why Ganesha then is always portrayed at a sort of toddler's body. It's always like a child's body with an elephant head. And it is the wisdom deity. And so it's, again, and then you can look into different pantheons and see how elephants have been associated with wisdom. So there's an archetype there. But the wisdom deity of Ganesha is on the left arm, the left-handed path, and then he has Christ on his right arm, the right-handed path. I think that somewhat makes sense, but of course Christ is right next to his chakras, which go upside his right arm.
Philosophy, and over here there's a Sikh symbol, and just over here, that's West Ham United.
Let me tell you something about these tattoos, okay? That is Buddhist, that is Nordic, that is Hindu, that's just gibberish. They are completely conflicting ideologies, and that does not make you a citizen of the world. It makes you full of shit.
Facts.
There's all manner of deities and symbols and signs adorning my body, primarily because I believe in what Aldous Huxley called perennialism, that divinity, the sublime, that which is transcendent of material, that which pertains to our awareness as individuals and as a collective, can be found through certain practices, whether those practices are psychedelic experiences, meditative experiences, experiences of devotional love and service, that we can connect to the oneness, the fraternity, the human family through certain ways of life and systems. Not necessarily systems of belief. I've heard belief described as a thought that you like having. A belief is a thought that you like having. I like having this thought. So, yes, I love Jesus Christ.
Kind of like your own beliefs, Russell? Kind of like everything, again, all the 3 videos we've watched already, kind of like those beliefs. You see how it's so easy for the spiritual but not religious people, it's so easy for them to like degrade belief and faith when they themselves participate in the exact same thing. It just comes back to, what do you ultimately put your belief in? Where is the foundation to this process of beliefs, of groundedness, again, what exactly is all this stuff resting on? Well, I don't do beliefs. Bro, the whole thing you just said is full of beliefs. What are you talking about? In fact, I think you have more faith than I do. At least mine's a coherent worldview of a religion that is self-justifies, and I can explain everything I believe in. Yours is a contradiction of all these different worldviews, paradigms, religions, and you're talking to me about how my Christian belief is somehow less evolved or less advanced as your what?
Yes, I love Ganesh and Krishna and all of the prophets, because for me it seems that the prophets all convey one message. No. We are here. We are going to die. Love is the most important thing. Separateness is an illusion. We are all one.
See, the separateness is an illusion. It seems clever. And to a degree, again, love your neighbor as yourself. And to a degree, we are all one. We all are created. We are all of the same essence called mankind, right? Being human. There's a human essence of which we all share. We are all one in that degree. But because our worldview does not abolish the multiplicity, the particular, the specific, we also recognize that we are unique substantiations, that we are all one in essence, but we are multiple in persons. Allah, just like the Holy Trinity itself, just like God itself. God is one in essence, 3 in person, multiple persons. The one in the many collapses within our Trinity. The Trinity is the only understanding, the only description of God that then allows God to not be limited by anything. By anything, right? Our God can be one. Our God can be multiple. Our God is eternal. Our God can be in time. Our God has a human body. Our God pre-exists creation. There's nothing you can say about the Holy Trinity that our God can't do. It's all these other worldviews. The worldviews where God is total unity, where then all of a sudden God has a bunch of boxes that he can't be.
Greater purpose than the fulfillment of our materialistic individual needs. These are the things that I believe in. I feel I have more in common with anyone who believes in love than people who think that there is no point to life, that you're born, you die, and that it's a sort of an ugly, senseless, nihilistic cosmos without meaning. Of course, many people believe that meaning itself is a construct or a way that we cope with life's futility, that we need to find it, we need to find purpose. But for me, the corollary and consistency of image systems and the archetypes that emerge and the types of belief and the types of systems that recur throughout human societies and the way that they are comparable and consistent with one another is a suggestion that there is an absolute truth, like, I suppose, Jung's ideas around the collective unconscious and Joseph Campbell's work comparing various religions to one another. And then my own personal feelings when listening to spiritual people talking about their individual experiences or the stories in their own particular theological tradition. I am moved by the oneness, plus my own personal experience with psychedelics and my own personal experience with transcendental meditation.
So again, you see the truth, the validity, the veracity of his spiritual claims is always rooted in his own personal experience. My psychedelic experience, my meditational experience, my life experience. Russell, I can validate that to a degree, but what is objective truth? Does objective truth, 2 + 2 = 4, and that's true no matter where you're at in the world, or is that also a social construction? Where does objective truth lie in your worldview? Because it seems like you keep dancing around it and you promote a subjectivistic, relativistic worldview, yet you speak as if it's objectively true.
And the conclusion drawn from them that there is no point in anything
except kindness and service. Not to say that I am by any means a perfect individual who's able to pursue that realization resolutely and without deviation. I continually fail every day. I am distracted by property, prestige, money, privilege, attention. These things, the temptations, as in the story of Christ, he experienced. If religion is something believed in to the exclusion of other religions, or in a...
Yes, because truth excludes non-truth. So if objective truth exists, by definition, all religions must then exist, whether you're Christian or not Christian. If objective truth exists, all religious claims exist on a continuum of truth. Therefore, some must, by definition, be more true than others regarding the nature of reality. Yeah, Jim Bob says spermaticos, Exactly. There's only one epistemology. It's logos, and this is where you almost want to help Russell. You want to give him some philosophical basis. Shout out to Made by Jim Bob and all the work he's been doing. Great point. He needs, again, that's why perennialism can't be true. There's not an objective epistemological framework to interpret it. Only logos, spermaticos, logos theology, logos epistemology, logos. That truth can then be found in all these different world religions. That is the closest we get to perennialism. This kind of thing of like this subjective relativism, but it's objectively true. Let me objectively, truthfully tell you something that's subjective and relativistic. It doesn't work.
To other religions, that's something that's not for me. My approach to them is that they are all true. They are all talking about the same truth.
No, they can't, by definition. Like, theistic Satanism cannot, by definition, be talking about the same thing as Orthodox Christianity or Catholicism or Protestantism or Pentecostalism or Islam. What are you talking about? It's an absolutely inverted world. It's the opposite of. It can't be the same thing.
They are all pointing to something beyond language.
Okay, true there. We can talk about the category of religion are systematized attempts to describe a sort of transcendental reality. Agreed there. But they all can't be equal by definition if objective truth exists.
Language itself, the first metaphorical and symbolic system through which we receive other metaphors and symbolic systems. It's pertaining to what is beyond separateness, what is beyond me as an individual observing the outside world. Can that be melted away so that I feel that I'm part of one glorious interconnected system, a point of attention within the limitless oneness? That's my relationship with a religion. So if you believe in Jesus Christ or the Prophet Muhammad or the Buddha or some more obscure...
The thing is, we don't even have to believe in... I mean, we know that most likely, from my understanding as a religious science, there are theories that the Buddha didn't historically exist. There's also examples, and I believe it probably did exist, that there is historical evidence of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. Same thing with Muhammad. We know Muhammad exists. We know his military campaigns in 620. We know the takeover of Arabia. And we know that Jesus Christ existed as a historical man. Maybe, obviously, there's more arguments that he didn't exist as a historical person, but all you have to do is start to get into, especially as a believer, the life of the apostles, the fact that they were all willing to go martyr themselves. Certainly, in my estimation as a believer, shows that they certainly believed in something to give their life to it. But all three of these examples are also historical people, yet he's still talking about belief. The belief in Islam is not necessarily in the prophet. It's that what the prophet said was the newest prophecy of God. Muslims also believe in Christ as the Messiah who's going to come at the end of the world. You know, the Buddha. I don't think most Buddhists believe in the Buddha per se as a god. They believe in the teachings of non-attachment to bring one into higher enlightenment, right? Satori, and Zen Buddhism, samsara, escaping moksha. So, again, doesn't make any sense. Total conflation of categories.
God whose name I don't even know. Like, for me, that's not important. Or if you don't believe in any God at all, but believe that human beings should be beautiful to one another as the priority, and to protect the planet, and to be striving to create new fair systems, then we are all of the same faith.
But what religion actually did that? Did Islam teach Muslims to treat non-Muslims the same way? No. Did Judaism teach Jews to treat non-Jews the same way as they treated Jews? No. Oh, okay, what about Buddhists? No, Buddhism was actually one of the leaders of slavery in the Asian world. Huh. Well, which religion told its practitioners to treat non-Christians the exact same? Christianity. Christianity is the only religion that told its believers to treat non-Christians the exact same way. So again, we see how he is putting forth a Christian morality wrapped inside this sort of unifying New Age rhetoric of abstract consciousness and abstract unity. And I think Jim Bob totally nailed it. You can tell he's searching for the unifying foundation. That's what he wants. And I don't discredit him for that. Obviously, we all want to find unity. We want to see how things connect. That's why we love metaphors and games. But what he's doing is then it's a total epistemic contradiction. And because of that, you can totally dismiss it. What he needs is logos. He needs an understanding of logos spermaticos. He needs an understanding of metaphysics. He needs an understanding of epistemic foundations and how then we make truth claims. Because right now, it's all gobbledygook. It contradicts itself.
For me, religion is not a tribalistic football team thing. I reserve that for West Ham. As a West Ham fan, I prefer West Ham to Tottenham and Arsenal. As an enlightened person, I recognise that all football teams are arbitrarily designated to you as a result of who your father happened to support. My dad supported West Ham. I support West Ham. That's the way that it goes. But I don't believe in the sole divinity of West Ham United, although, Bobby Moore, what a player. Upton Park, what a place. So my point is this, that find a way of relating to divinity, to the divine. Create your own religion, as WB.
Yes, just enter into your own subjective world. We see it's totally postmodern. We see it's totally this breakdown. The fact that he doesn't see, because in another video, he's going to argue that the individual doesn't really exist. The individual is an illusion. The individual is an illusion. We're all one. That's the reality. Again, you see the privileging of unity over multiplicity, the multiple individuals, not really individuals. And yet he still puts forth, again, like these ideas.
Find a way of relating to divinity, to the divine. Create your own religion.
Create your own religion? We're talking about ultimate truth claims. You see the lack of sophistication. How's somebody going to create a new metaphysical? There's either one that's true or there's one that's not true. Same thing with ethics and epistemology. What is he talking about? Again, it goes back to like Timothy Leary in the 1960s counterculture of, create your own religion, create your own worldview, create your own system of divinity. But what do they all do? They actually all end up validating themselves. So he's against the individual, but yet what he's arguing for are people actually diving deeper into their own personal universes, their own personal abyss, their own personal metaverse. It's the metaverse before the actual VR metaverse. Yeah, make up your own land of make-believe. Russell Brand, yeah. Shout out to Father Deacon Dr. Ananias, who's with us here in the live chat with Patristic Faith. Yeah, absolutely. Make up your own land of make-believe. What? So we're all... Again, he's making objective truth claims. Then he's saying that we all need to then have our own subjective spiritual experiences in relation to divinity. So then go make up your own world religions. Go make up your own religions. Go make up your own rituals. Oh my gosh. And then eventually we're going to get to his videos condemning the World Economic Forum, the coup, lockdowns, the jibby jabs, all this different stuff, which again, you can see how his worldview is actually part of their system, right? Dyer has done such good work of talking about the global elites, funding communism, funding all these experiments, these political experiments, funding the transformation of society. I mean, the spiritual worldview that he himself has been funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, has been funded by the, all these different NGOs and think tanks. He doesn't get it.
W.B. Yeats said, all artists must. But religion is for you, not for others. A religion is, this is what I'm going to do to cope with being alive and knowing that I and everyone I love is going to die.
Oh, shout out to Father Deacon. He made a hilarious comment in the live chat. He says, how about we make up a religion that believes everything Russell Brand says is false, so that Russell Brand then says that our religion must also be true? Genius.
You should do this. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. But that's just power and institutionalization. Religion is a thing that is for me.
Yes, the most basic white girl, criticism is religions are institutions. I'm like spiritual. I'm like in my personal worldview, my personal experience of God.
And not for me to tell other people how to do. So here even.
But you just told other people to be kind to other people. That's exactly you telling other people to do something according to your own worldview and dictates.
Only pondering. I'll be glad to hear what your views on religion are. I'll be glad to see how you cope with complexity and divinity and the avatars of the sublime and the divine and the unknowable and the unseeable, and how you relate to it, and how you see atheistic, materialistic, secularist ideologies as somehow superior to religious ideologies, when even the idea of sovereignty in the nation itself is derived from religious precedents. For me, religious systems are not just ones that have got sort of mythical, deified individuals as part of their theocratic past. A country is a religious system. The flag represents the nation.
No, you just talked about how religions are talking about a transcendental reality. Now he's equating politics, ideology, nation states as also religion. Again, a conflation of categories. There's a category error there, bro. Category error.
The nation represents a landmass. That landmass represents a cohesive narrative that binds all of those people. But for what purpose, to what end, and which people are included and which people are excluded, and who benefits from those systems. So there's, if you think that people are naive for believing in Jesus or Ganesh or Muhammad, then you should similarly question people that believe in the United States of America or India or China.
What? The belief in the United States of America is equal to the belief in various religious figures throughout history in the major world religions. Huh? All right. Moving on to the next video clip. So you can see what we're dealing with here. Now this is a good one, guys. You guys are going to love this one. This is him talking with Sadhguru. So as we talked about, look. So I got all these videos here at the end. Here's Russell Brand's channel, right? And I just went sorted by most popular. And you can see a lot within the last year. 1 year, 11 months, 1 year, 8 months, 8 months, 1 year, 3 months. So he's been getting, some of his more recent videos are getting tons of views. What are they about? They're almost all about, stabby passports. This is where it leads. The COVID cover-up. Joe Rogan unmasked CNN's true agenda. So you see how he's getting into sort of the right of the conspiracies in regards to the Great Reset and what's going on. Yet what I'm getting ready to show you is him sitting down with Sadhguru, again, the Indian guru that's actually part of the World Economic Forum, that actually is aiding in the process of the depopulation of the planet. Russell Brand has him on his Spiritual Under the Skin podcast to tell us about how economics is bad spiritually and how we're trapped by it. Guys, if you go and you look up Sadhguru, like, I got to show you some of these photos. Like, he's on like his motorbike. Like, you see how he dresses up as a guru all the time, right? Let's go Sadhguru wealth. Where is it? You can find all these photos of him where he's got like motorcycles, super nice cars, traveling around India, lives a super luxurious lifestyle. And he'll be in totally normal person clothes. Okay, Sadhguru motorcycle. Here you go. So here's some Sadhguru photos. This is him going across America. You know, a nice BMW bike. You know, yada yada yada. But it's so funny again. So here is Russell Brand talking with Sadhguru about how we are totally being controlled by the political and the capitalistic economic structure, that the capitalistic structure has to be destroyed because we are being controlled by it. So check this out.
Percent of Americans are getting some sort of pharmaceutical aid, whether that's prescribed or illicit. It seems to me to not be a coincidence that this is the most economically advanced culture. It seems to me not to be a coincidence that this isn't a culture without ideologies or philosophies. It's one with a deeply entrenched, financially supported, culturally enforced, propaganda illuminated ideology of deep capitalist consumerism. Whilst this might be Thanksgiving for some, it's Black Friday for others. And the ideology of consumerism is more and more supported. And I believe and agree with you that we may be the CEOs of our own narcotic or chemical factories, but individuals are not living in a neutral culture. We're living in a culture that has certain aims and intentions for its populace. And the statistics that you cite, Sadhguru, for me make it very, very clear what the intentions of this culture are. And again, whilst I acknowledge the only role I can meaningfully conduct is my own evolution, my own awakening, and hope that has an environmental benefits, please God, I feel that it is negligent not to observe the cultural impact of ideologies that are making drug addicts, that are manufacturing mental illness, that these conditions don't occur in isolation. They occur at epidemic levels because of broken ideologies, which are themselves a reflection and manifestation of these unconscious appetites that we have yet to process on a cultural level, and that we are discussing how to process on an individual level.
You see how his whole framework of basically the fact that, yes, pharmaceutical companies, major corporations in the Western world are actually financed for the purpose of profit, which is part of a consolidation of finances, of capital, which then is centralizing power, information, and force within the Western world, i.e. leading to a communistic structure, a sort of fascistic, crypto-capitalistic communist society, i.e. China. Yes, we agree there, and we agree also with the pharmaceutical industry there, Russell. So let's hear Sadhguru, again, the beautiful World Economic Forum leader, a guru, tell us about, again, the problems with the economic structure. At the same time, well, I'll leave this later.
I would say all ideologies are spirituality gone off track.
And so that's the thing, that Russell Brand's whole framework was totally secular, it was very secular, right? He didn't talk about how the pharmaceutical companies or profit motive and greed is part of a spiritual reality. No, it's just a problem of ingrained consciousness behavior, right? It's just a problem of abstraction. We would say, no, that is a spiritual phenomenon. We would say that greed is the opposite of mercy. And so when somebody's acting greedily, they're actually acting in the absence of God's energetic reality of mercy and compassion and sharing things. So you notice how he framed the whole state of the West not in a spiritual battle, which is how we're seeing it. He framed it as a sort of economic struggle.
Derailed. Because, let's see it this way, there are two fundamental ideologies, because you took up this commercialism that's going on now. So there is a capitalistic way of doing things, which is essentially manufacturing more, consuming more, whatever. Another is a communist philosophy of sharing and, making it a community. Where does this come from? So capitalism, or this consumerism as we call it today, is coming from more, more and more. Well, that is a spiritual aspect, but gone bad. It's gotten derailed. A train is good when it's on the track. When it goes off the rails, it's a disaster. So, this is a disaster because more and more is human consciousness, because human being doesn't want to be contained, he wants to be everything. But now we are going in installments. If you want to become infinite, can you approach it in installments? That's the question. You want to become infinite. Can you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and say, one day I'm infinite? No.
I don't think my quest has ever been to become infinite, per se. So again, interesting perspective here from the Sadhguru.
All you will become is endless counting. This is consumerism. You're becoming an endless counting. How much ever you count, what you were… At one time you were counting $10 at 10 pounds was a great amount of income. Today you may be saying 10 billion, but it doesn't mean anything, actually. So people suffering is not related to how much they have. It is the fundamental thing about wanting to be more. If I have to use an analogy…
Again, guys, remember, he's talking about the problem is that you think you need more, so you actually don't need more. Guys, he's with the World Economic Forum. He's working with Klaus Schwab. They want to take away your private property. That's exactly what he's talking about. I mean, don't you see how it totally overlaps, is inconsistent? It's absolutely consistent.
Let us say you have $2 billion, I'm assuming, okay? And you lost $1 billion, you will be miserable. But somebody else in a remote society has 2 cows, that's all he has, and he lost 1 cow. He will also be equally miserable, not less miserable, all right? But in the marketplace, you cannot compare $1 billion to 1 cow. But in human experience, that's how it is. So the more on the outside or less on the outside doesn't really make a difference except in social situations. Because you particularly said about the impact of the society upon the individual human being, society writing the prescription how you should live, that is the first thing I addressed, that is human consciousness should shape the society. Society should not shape the individual human consciousness. Right now the only…
Consciousness should shape society, society should not shape consciousness, but we know that they shape each other. It's a both-and process. I mean, that's not rocket science. That's like just general sociology, right? I mean, that's what that is. It's a give and take. Nature versus nurture. Well, it's both. So I do not get this. Again, you see this absolutely retarded metaphor of Sadhguru.
Value that you have is economics. Nobody is even discussing whether even in England. They're only talking economy these days. You talk to an old grandmother, she also talks economy. You talk to a 15-year-old boy, he also talks economy. In between, everybody else is economy. Everybody have become slaves of the economic engine. So economy is essentially a glorified version of survival process, all right? A man went out and bought…
The economy is a glorified worship of the survival process. We're listening to a wealthy Indian guru who works with the World Economic Forum for the purpose of global depopulation and economic transformation into a one-world structure. What?
A bag full of fish home, that was his survival at one time. But now it's become glorified, man goes to the stock market and does complex things and comes home with the same things, or not even that, all right? So, virtual fish maybe he's coming home with, we don't know what he's coming home with. But essentially, it's survival process glorified and spread across the world. The complexity of transactions has led to this, but our problem is, when something starts rolling, we don't have a steering wheel in our hands. So right now, the economic condition in the…
Okay, I'm done with Sadhguru. I can't listen to it too much. It's kind of boring. Let's listen to Eckhart Tolle tell us about who Jesus Christ is.
There are some incredible jewels in the Bible. Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven, which in my translation is not, I translated kingdom, I translate it as dimension.
I'd be curious to know what translation you're using there, Eckhart.
And heaven, which is the vast heaven, when you look up at the sky, that's the closest thing you can get to spaciousness in the sense-perceived world. The closest thing you can get to spaciousness is you look at the vastness of the sky or heaven. In many languages, heaven and sky is the same word.
Yes, heaven and sky are obviously very similar discussions regarding about the vastness of space and time. Where are you going here, Eckhart?
So you look at the vastness of sky, which is vast spaciousness. So the kingdom of heaven is the dimension of spaciousness. It's a dimension of consciousness that is possible to realize, and it's not usually difficult. This is why then they asked Jesus, where is the kingdom of heaven? When is it going to come? And he said, the kingdom of heaven cannot come with signs to be perceived. You can never say it's over here or it's over there, because the kingdom of heaven is within you. There are points when only surrender is a possibility for you to be free of suffering. And you look at the image of Jesus. What does it point to? It points to join these. St. Paul talked about that too. The suffering of Christ is my suffering. So you, through identifying with the archetypal.
I can't tell if Russell's getting ready to fall asleep or he's having trouble following what Tolly's saying.
Figure. One could say Christ is the archetypal human. And it shows what is possible, because Christ is nailed to the cross. But the cross, which is a torture instrument, so he is nailed to the torture instrument. But the cross has a double meaning. The cross is also a symbol for the divine. So sometimes you see just the cross. The cross is a symbol for the divine. The cross is a torture instrument also. And bring the two together, which shows that one important portal, a very important portal, and traditionally for most humans, into the transcendent dimension is suffering and the acceptance of suffering.
To that degree, I don't think we would disagree too much with that. Obviously, it's not all symbolic, but yeah, the nature of reality, to follow the true God, to follow Christ, is to embrace suffering. So, I mean, not too far off with that one. Here is Eckhart Tolle telling Russell how to break out of the matrix. And remember, I did a thing on Tolle talking about how he supported the vaccines and the stabbies and all that.
But how do we do that in a culture that constantly generates wanting, desire, continually provoking and stoking desire to turn us into obedient little consumers? In my Luminary podcast, Under the Skin, I spoke to the great, the legendary Eckhart Tolle and told him about my own struggle with wanting, how hard it is for me as an individual on the path, trying to awaken myself, free myself from the shackles of a culture that wants me dumb. Yet I myself manufacture my own wanting. This is what Eckhart Tolle had to say. All the time while you're speaking, I'm aware that I find it really hard to not think. My mind is very, very busy. I need to be sort of quite particular. I know from speaking to you before that you don't meditate, you just remain continually present. It's not like you go off for 20 minutes or half an hour or anything like that. And I feel that obviously you had a kind of very stark epiphany that seemed like, one day you were this person and the next day you were another person. And the awareness behind the person, I suppose, to use your terminology and your own explanation. But like for me, I do sometimes experience transcendence, awareness. During this conversation I have, when I focus very much on what you're saying, I feel free and I'm completely present in the moment. But I have always had this tendency to return to carnality, always had this tendency to return to wanting, always had this tendency to return to caring about what other people think about me and if I've got enough status. I seem to have a lot of this, whatever it is that weds people to materialism and to the conceptual mind. It feels strong in me. What do I do about that?
Well, you don't really need to do anything, because if you attempt to get rid of something that you observe, then you very often give it more energy. If you fight something, you give it more energy. That's why, for example, the war against drugs didn't work. The war against anything doesn't.
The war against drugs didn't work because working to stop something doesn't stop it. The war against drugs didn't work because the CIA and the U.S. federal government did it as a way to actually move the drugs, sell the drugs, and make money both off arresting people from the drugs and also moving the drugs themselves. That had nothing to do with the concept that in reality, if you try to stop something, you never can. So therefore, never try to stop anything or never try to correct anything. What? No, absolutely not. Absolutely, in my opinion, that's absolutely the wrong approach.
So to be as much aware as you can, even as a desire arises, for whatever it may be, to be aware that there is a desire arising and just be there as the observing presence. For some people, for example, that's probably not the case with you. Some people are addicted to food intake in order to fill some gaping voids that they experience or to dull the pain that they experience. And they find themselves already munching something and they don't even know how it got into their mouth because the movement was unconscious. If you can observe a desire, if it's food or if it's drink, desire arising to go to the fridge and get out the chocolate cake, so you feel the desire rising, that's already an enormous gain in consciousness if you can feel the desire rising instead of just being the desire. So if you can feel it and instead of condemning yourself for it, I would sometimes recommend to have a little gap before you do what the desire wants you to do.
And I could agree with this too. So he's saying when you have a desirous temptation, to not engage with it right away, but to just to try to separate it. Well, okay, I can agree with that. But in a way, I'm doing that as an attempt to potentially stamp out and stop the desire itself and to become conscientious of it. So it seems like...
Have a little gap. Let's say the desire says, I've had a tough day, because sometimes desire is associated with mental explanations that to justify what you're going to do. For example, it says, well, that's the only thing that's still, I'm not going to renounce drink because it's the only pleasure I've left in life. I deserve it. Everything else has been taken from me. It's the only thing that I have. For example, kind of justification. Or says, okay, I've had a tough day again. I deserve a treat. I'm going to have that chocolate cake. That's fine. So if you can observe, not only the desire can exist on a purely energetic level as a longing, a pull, it can also at the same time exist on the level of verbalization in the mind. It could justify why you deserve it, why you need it, why you want it. And if you can observe that and just delay it for a couple of minutes before you actually do it, instead of wanting to completely suppress it, give it a couple of minutes or so to simply observe the energy behind that desire, or to observe what your mind is saying, to just be with it. That increases your consciousness, your awareness grows through it. And even perhaps it's still so strong that you still do it, but at least there's still an awareness there. You're no longer totally in the grip, and then not fall into the mistake of condemning yourself afterwards, because that's ego too. If you condemn yourself, you see, I'm not good enough, you can't, because self.
You see how, well, think about how this might relate to Christian humility. Again, we as Orthodox Christians, we're constantly trying to be humble. We're constantly trying to see how we aren't worthy of God's salvation. We aren't worthy of divinity. We are constantly failing based on an objective standard of morality and Orthodox Christian teachings and how we become closer to God. So we are sinning. We're constantly going and violating that sort of standard. And this sort of discussion, this sort of spiritual advice, I think, in a way, prevents somebody from ever having humility. Because every sin you make, every addiction, every attachment, don't condemn yourself for it. Don't feel bad for it. Just kind of get over it. And that was you in that moment, but then you move on. There's a little bit of truth there, but my gosh, My gosh, I think that's poor spiritual advice. I think the more humble I've become, and that's the whole message about Christ, right? The lowliness, the most humiliating thing to die on the cross naked in front of your mother when you didn't actually commit any crime or violated any law. That is the way to divinity. That's the way we escape death, is through the humility, through the lowering we are actually elevated. And we see a sort of opposite teaching here.
Many people have self-talk in there. They talk to themselves. Either they say I or they say you. They have two people that argue with each other. So it says, so why can't you see all your spiritual practice is useless? You can't do it. You always fall back to the same. You're no good. And then the other one says, yeah, but I can't help it. I deserve a little bit of pleasure. What's left? It's all the mind talking. Can you be aware of that? And if that awareness grows, and you use all these opportunities for just a bit of bringing some awareness, and gradually the force of the desire will diminish if you bring more awareness in.
Okay, so we generally get it there. Let's move on. We're not going to get much from that. Let's hear a little Deepak Chopra. This is another guy I really can't stand too much to listen to, but here's Russell Brand talking to Deepak Chopra.
That our reality is a projection of some form. I have a few inquiries. One is, how do we use this to alter our experience of reality, to have a more peaceful and happy experience of reality? And why is it that power and domination seem to have a repetitive paradigm throughout the history of civilization, these structures of dominance, whether it's colonial domination, capitalist domination, the continual subjugation of people, the establishments of hierarchies of power, the dissemination of false information. Why do these things recur? Why are human beings so interested in power?
Why are hierarchies innately bad? I don't get hierarchies of power being included within like mass crime and fraud and all. Everything has a hierarchy of authority.
How can spirituality and the questions that are evoked by this new understanding using the language and methods of science, how can this understanding be used how can it be utilized to increase the happiness of people as individuals, to increase social equality and social liberation?
There are two questions you've asked, and I'll try my best to answer them both. The first is there's already research now, and we have been doing this research as well, but there are many other institutions that are doing research on what are called spiritual experiences and non-dual experiences, unity consciousness experiences. And some of the things that we have found, as others have found, the shifts that take place in people who are going through a spiritual practice, whether it's contemplative self-inquiry, or it's self-realization, or it's mindful awareness of perceptual experience, mindful awareness of mental space, mindful awareness of the web of relationship, mindful awareness of the universe, mindful awareness of awareness. As people go through these experiences, here are some of the things that are measurably seen. Okay, first is they experience a change in their identity. They slowly no longer identify as the body-mind as who they are. They identify with a consciousness in which the body-mind is a happening, is an experience, a changing experience. That's one. A shift in identity from personal to in the direction of universal. The second thing that they experience is a shift in emotions. So there's less drama, less melodrama in their life, but also emotions evolving in the direction of love, compassion, joy, equanimity, to the point they realize that love is the ultimate truth at the heart of creation. Not just a sentiment, not just an emotion, but the glue of unity consciousness.
Well, I wouldn't talk about unity consciousness, but we would agree as Orthodox Christians that love, in a way, is the sort of the most foundational root of creation itself. It was free willy created out of God's love. So to that we can probably agree with. But the whole, again, just listening to this guy talk drives me nuts.
That actually is the force behind the ecosystem of relationships. So that's the second shift they have, emotionals. The third shift they have is in memory. Memory is sharp, but they're not victimized by memory. All addiction is actually being a victim of a memory. So once you go beyond the memory, transcend the memory, then as the phrase is, I use memories, but I do not allow memories to use me. So you're not victimized by the past, which no longer exists.
You see how this entire spirituality is just inside your head. It's like it's psychology mixed with religious rhetoric. It's psychology mixed with religious rhetoric. Yes, don't let past events control your life. Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably good advice for most of us. I'm confused with, again, how this had to do with the original question by Russell Brand about how to navigate the power hierarchies and the greed and the crime and all. What?
Except as a wisp of memory somewhere in consciousness, non-local consciousness. So there's a shift in how we use memory. The fourth thing that happens is in a shift in perception, which means perception is clearer. It is also in the present moment. There is no resistance. There is no anticipation. There is no regret. It's just this experience in the vivid now. This lucid dream in a vivid now.
Yes, it's a dream because ultimately it's not real. Epistemological claim regarding the reality of creation itself. So I can't listen to a whole lot of this stuff, so we're going to move on, guys. Here's a quick one on what sort of God do I believe in. This is probably worth, and then we're going to get into his more recent stuff, and then we're going to dive into all the super chats. So guys, smash that like if you're still with me, and if you would like to throw some support and share some love for this stream and my work, feel free to throw in a super chat using the Streamlabs link, or if you prefer to use YouTube, feel free to use YouTube.
I guess the first part of the question is, well, can you speak more about your definition of what God is and whether it's sort of a practical definition that you use in your life? And then conversely, do you believe in the opposite of that, in the idea of evil as a sort of concept that is useful in life?
Well, no, I don't really believe in evil, actually, because I feel like most of
doesn't believe in evil. So again, you see, is there any moral, ethical line that can be crossed that would then move into a different category? Not for Russell Brand.
What we would regard as evil can be recontextualized when you look at the circumstances under which it happened, i.e. I don't feel like it's evil when someone gets a terrible disease. I just think that's sort of reality on another level. I don't think it's evil when someone is violent. It's just kind of, look at the conditions and circumstances, although the results might be painful. In terms of God, what I feel like, and I really urge all of you to listen to the first 20 minutes of this bloody thing I listened to yesterday. It was Terence McKenna, of whom I consider myself to be a fan. Right, Terence McKenna, go on YouTube and look at the Terence McKenna video, Modern Society.
Okay.
This is the third.
So this must be the lecture that he was talking about. Okay, let's hear what he's got.
The first 20 minutes of it, he's smashed my head up. Because what he talks about really is that. Oh, well, what was that quote I sent you yesterday, Demaya, from Terence McKenna? I sent it on the chat. He said, like, you can't understand the universal mystery using a primate's neural network. The universal mystery meaning the limitless complexity of the physical, biological and chemical world. How can we possibly understand and appreciate that with the limitations of our senses? Isn't it curious that reality looks a lot like the stuff we could see and touch and smell and taste? What an odd coincidence. In my daughter's bedroom, she has like a light that she likes at night. It's sort of like stars and moons, whatever, and she likes to have it on red, which troubles me because I think she's intense enough as it is. I don't like her going to sleep amidst all that red, but they say that's okay. I'm trying not to worry about it. Anyway, this red and blue light, she's got a potty in her room and the inner layer of the potty is green, but with that red and blue light on, you would swear blind that it was orange. So even the fundamental reality in the world of colour is subjective. You can witness in your own life the subjectivity of it. And I feel that...
You see, the subjective nature of colors and how they may mix using light does not have anything to do with the fact of objective truth existing.
We are curating a reality on the basis of our experience and our limitations. I'm like deconstructivism in the sense that we can recognise that established ideas around sort of sex and gender and nation and hegemony and power are largely speaking constructs. I recognise that there is a thing called biology, but built upon biology there are layer after layer of culture. So when you ask, do I believe in God? The answer is yes, I only believe in God. It's the only thing I believe in. Everything else arbitrary, everything else constructed.
Which God there, Russell? Which God do you believe in? And can you explain that to me in a straightforward way? Like, is your God personal? Is your God abstract? Is your God separate from creation? Is your God coexistent with creation? What exactly is this God you speak of?
Fundamentally believe in. What do you mean by God? I mean my awareness. I believe that in a sense we are all Krishna or Christ or Buddha in our own life. That no matter how much you deify some far-flung celebrity figure, they won't be as important to you as your Uncle Owen or your Auntie Jean. The pantheon of your own life, the fundamental experiences of your own mythology. You are your own God. I don't mean that in the sense of that you should become the object of your own worship, but you ought revere yourself. You ought love yourself. You all cultivate in yourself a state of love, a sense that this is a great mystery unfolding before us, that all is not what it seems. When you feel like that you loathe yourself, that is not real. When you feel that you absolutely have to have a certain outcome to a particular situation, that is not real. As Sadhguru says, there are biological forces at work in us that have been evolving for millions of years. There is a deep intelligence in the ecological systems that are the crucible of our life. We are held in the deep, deep bowl of nature. This is the fundament of our reality. So I feel like, what is God? God is love, God is oneness. How is that? What do I mean by that practically? I mean, I watch the reality of my personal experience, and when it is taking me away from love, I start to recognise, this is a problem. Because I often feel like that vengeance, damnation, cruelty are appropriate actions in my own silly little life. Now I'm sort of learning to recognise that is a sort of an indication of malfunction. Is that any good to you, Daniel?
A lot to think about. But yeah, I saw someone
Yeah, a lot to think about. No, not really. Not a whole lot to think about. Anyways, so I have this page up just to show you that a lot of his most popular videos, if you go to his YouTube channel, which has 5.76 million subscribers, they're actually more recent videos. So again, like I said, 1 year, 11 months, 1 year, 8 months, 3 months, 1 year, 7 months, 4 months, 1 year, 9 months, 3 months. So a lot of these recent videos, but what are they on? The new Pfizer vaccine. So Trump was right. What a crazy mess. Pfizer whistleblower. Talking about the war of Russia and Ukraine. Talking about Will Smith and Chris Rock. Talking basically about the Great Reset. So within everything that we just saw, We have a really strong foundation and concept of what Russell Brand's spirituality is and his spiritual paradigm and how he sees the world. Now, let's look at him criticizing the global Great Reset, the World Economic Forum, and the same, again, a system of political and economic and global transformation that is totally consistent with his spiritual worldview and spiritual paradigm, yet he's criticizing it. So he promotes the spiritual ideas which the World Economic Forum would promote. That's why they have Sadhguru and all these people there. And yet he's criticizing it. And before we even start, look, he's got a shirt that says Gaia Gaia on it, and he has a pink beanie on that almost looks like the pussy hats that the anti-Trump women, when Trump ran for president in 2016, that they wore. So check this out.
Klaus Schwab recently addressed the World Government Summit, because he has barely any influence anyway. Some say that the WF are working on schemes that could lead to social credit scoring, but they say they're not doing that. So who do you trust? The Lord God created 5.5 million wonders, and here you are. Here we are together on a journey of mutual awakening. We've got so much to talk about. It's Klaus Schwab, WEF stuff. You're going to love it. These new systems of social credit scoring where big companies are adjudicated and judged to be environmentally friendly and socially friendly in order to get better deals and better valuations. It's a fantastic story. It's right up your alley. You're going to love it. There's still a few tickets left for a few of my shows. There's a link in the description if you want to come. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to subscribe to my mailing list so I can stay in direct contact with you, just in case there is a big global conspiracy that shuts people down, which I don't know for sure if there is or not. You let me know in the comments below if you think there is. Now let's get into this story. You're going to love this because I know you love Klaus Schwab.
Klaus Schwab, oh dear, I better just address a big summit. I don't have any influence. I don't like to pry.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen.
Seeing Klaus Schwab with his shaved head on a big screen with that accent, I never think anything like, are you literally a supervillain from a parody of a Bond film?
It's my great honor to participate for the 8th time at this important meeting. Last November, in partnership with His Excellency Mohammed Al-Gargawi.
Who are these excellencies? He's talking, I think, to dignitaries and possibly royalty in Dubai, where this thing's taking place. So, nothing to worry about there, then.
We brought together 60 top intellectual thinkers here in Dubai to define a
I wonder if Sadhguru is one of them.
long-term narrative to make the world more resilient, more inclusive, and more sustainable.
A more inclusive, more resilient world where you might have nothing, but by God will you be happy.
I'm proud that the government of Dubai has been so foresighted in establishing a Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution in cooperation with the World Economic Forum. The objective is to quickly recognize the potential of new technologies.
Yeah, like social credit scores and mandatory ID to go anywhere. Are you not somewhat concerned just by the existence of conferences of this nature? I don't want to be like a conspiracy theory fanboy, because I don't think we should just blindly assume that things are negative when there isn't evidence for it. But it appears to me that the accumulation, the congregation of these individuals, the places that they're from, the shared interest they have, the way that they're able to operate beyond the influence of national government, the way that they're able to seed their acolytes into government, that's something that Klaus Schwab talks about. And many of the ideas that you see spoken about in the World Economic Forum, at Davos, or affiliated publications end up as government policy, sometimes in ways that are eerily perspicacious, in particular the 2016 documentation that Microsoft published around digital ID. Eerily perspicacious.
As well as develop the necessary ethical and political frameworks around those new technologies to ensure.
So we don't need to watch this whole video. The point for me bringing this up is to show you that Russell Brand, I mean, this is from April 2022, so this is just a few months ago, 3-4 months ago, and he's criticizing, again, the lack of private property, the stabby mandates, the economic destruction, yet his spiritual worldview is totally consistent with a lot of this stuff. His promotion of, you know, social justice warriors and the progressive agenda. Remember how I opened this video? Remember, he's criticizing the World Economic Forum, but I opened this stream by him talking about how he's on a, you know, he's on a spiritual list with the likes of Oprah and the Pope and the Dalai Lama, and how they are deemed, again, the sort of spiritual leaders of the world, the top 100 spiritual leaders, and they all had the same spiritual worldview. The demonic kenosis, the privileging of unity over multiplicity, they all had the exact same thing. I mean, look at some of these names that he that were all, these were people that were on his list that he had interviewed. It's the exact same spirituality, the exact same paradigm, the exact same framework. Doesn't matter what they call themselves, what label they have. And yet he's over here criticizing Klaus Schwab when that entire spiritual worldview is totally consistent with what they're putting into place. The progressivism, the sexual degeneracy, the global economic structure. What, Russell, don't you understand that there's there's enough of Russell Brand that still can recognize some truth, and that's why I think he's seeing it, right? He's like halfway inside the NPC world because of his spiritual worldview, and he has one leg out of it to actually see what's going on. And so he's seeing the Great Reset. He's seeing so Trump was right about Clinton and Russia collusion. He's seeing the Kufid cover-up, new bombshell lab leak. He's seeing stabby passports. This is where it leads. He's seeing all the stuff. He's seeing, essentially, again, the spiritual reality moving into, as Christians, I mean, one step closer towards the end time, a global one world religion and economic structure, which the Antichrist will be worshipped as a god and will be viewed as a political and military leader. No matter where we're at in this process, don't you see how your worldview is actually moving us closer to that system? That your perennialism, the lack of distinction and boundaries between worldviews, presuppositions, metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, that you are leading spiritually, philosophically, towards a one world structure where there are no boundaries. You yourself, brother, are moving in that same direction.
That those technologies are human-centered and society-oriented.
Do you know that Klaus Schwab is like a master of using innocuous and friendly-sounding language for just going...
Let's move on to the next one. So then here's him talking about how Trump was right.
The world moves so fast, there's almost no time for history. It seems like years ago that we were hearing that Trump was colluding with Russia, that he wouldn't have won the election without Russia, that his whole presidency was a kind of Putin plot. Well, there's now serious evidence that it was the Clinton campaign and Hillary Clinton acolytes that were directly involved in the generation of what has proven to be a conspiracy. Untrue. Think about how much media you watched. Me, a person who I would think, broadly speaking, is from the left, a liberal, certainly not a Trump supporting Republican, with respect to those of you that are, I find myself in awe, gobsmacked, flabbergasted and startled by these revelations that Russiagate was a democratic conspiracy. Let's unpack that.
We knew this. Anybody who was paying attention, whether you were obsessed with Trump or not, if your head was in the game and you knew what was going on, even back in 2016, you already knew that. I mean, I remember in 16, 17, 18, 19, I already knew that the whole Russia thing was fake. Like, what are you talking about? It was again, the dossier, aided by the British, intelligence agency. The whole thing was fake. The whole thing was the U.S. actually spying on Trump. I get it. And that's not a promotion of Trump. That's just factually what happened. And now Russell Brand in September of 2021 gets it. And so is this part of him waking up? Is this part of his own spiritual journey that maybe, hopefully, he will shake off the sort of new age relativism, subjectivism, and this whole unity, abstract God consciousness thing? I don't know.
Now, with the help of Glenn Greenwald, a lawyer for Hillary Clinton's...
And we're not going to go into that. I mean, you guys get the whole Russia thing. It was fake. We got it. The Clinton and Obama used the U.S. intelligence agencies by the help of Britain to basically create a fake dossier that claimed Trump was with Russia, and so that they could then illegally spy on him. We get it. That has happened. Now it took him basically 4 years to figure that out.
Seems to suggest that there's been an international cover-up around the origins of the coronavirus, that it did come from a lab, that people in American government and the WHO did know about it and chose to conceal it. Why would that be? And what are the implications of something this significant, globally significant, being concealed? How does it affect our trust in government going forward and the likelihood of such events happening again? The headline in the Washington Post in an article by Josh Rogan is, new congressional report says COVID-19 likely emerged in Wuhan months earlier than originally thought. That's weird, isn't it? Because like by now you've got your own timeline of how it individually and personally affected you, where you were, how you reacted at every phase, the initial excitement around vaccines, concerns around vaccines, concerns around the story. Did it come from a lab? 19 months after the start of the pandemic, the Chinese government continues to actively thwart a real investigation into the origins of...
Okay, we already get this. We already know. There's no point for us to try to watch it or learn. My point is just to highlight that he has contradicting, again, understandings about he doesn't see how they conflate.
Wherever you are in the world right now, COVID passports are being discussed. Scale, the racial scale, the gender scale, all of these are everyday freedoms. Are we moving towards ID cards by stealth and further empowering massive centralized authorities that we have good reason to distrust?
As more and more Americans are getting inoculated against COVID-19, the idea of so-called vaccine passports has emerged as a point of contention. Vaccine passports would be...
Again, we're not going to go into that. I don't even want this stream to say that word so many times that the algorithm is going to pick it up. So I'm not going to play any more of that. But you get it. You get it. And so, this is going to begin to wrap up today's stream. Again, shout out to Nick Edmonds. I didn't say his name enough. Nick Edmonds sponsored tonight's stream. Shout out to Nick Edmonds if you guys enjoyed this topic. But generally speaking, my thesis for tonight's video was that Russell Brand is the perfect example of a contemporary spiritual seeker who is devoid of any serious metaphysical, theological, or philosophical grounding. And so we see him consistent with what I call the demonic kenosis, that there's a demonic spiritual process to get people to believe that the disintegration and the dissolving of boundaries between things is actually part of a spiritual process of progress. And so that we're progressing as we dissolve boundaries. We're progressing as there's no distinction between male and female. We're progressing as the national boundaries between countries is being dissolved. This is part of what I argue is a demonic kenosis, a demonic spiritual process that privileges unity over multiplicity. Because the multiplicity is tied to a theological concept in the Christian worldview that we are made in the image of God. And that being made in the image of God allows us to participate in all these higher faculties: logic, reason, language, truth, justice, love, mercy, compassion. And that these aren't just abstract consciousness, that I'm a conscious entity and my consciousness... No, it's that these things aren't actually performed or done by animals. Are animals conscious? Is my dog conscious? Is the lion conscious? Yeah, they're conscious, but they're not participating in these higher faculties because they're not made in the image of God. There is an ontological distinction there. And so we as Christians, our Trinity is one in many. It's one God with three persons, the one in the many, the ancient philosophical problem solved in the Godhead of Christianity. But with Brand, we see he privileges this unity over multiplicity. Everything's about the unity. Everything's about the unity. And yet he believes in this eternal, infinite moment, that the present moment that we're experiencing, again, just get real quiet. Just focus. This eternal moment. Yet at the same time, he believes in the Big Bang and Darwinian Wallace theory of evolution. That would insinuate a beginning point to the universe. That would insinuate that space and time are not infinite or eternal. That is a contradiction in terms. That is a categorical error. And so the problem with so much of his stuff is he's dependent upon a Christian morality, as we saw in multiple videos. He's basically morally and ethically a Christian. Yet that's the one religion that he really will not identify with, right? That monotheism, those are so backwards, and yet he believes in this abstract this concept of God as just consciousness, and that he's small consciousness, and that when he connects and meditates, then he can rise his awareness to higher consciousness. And so this is part of the basic apotheosis worldview, the idea that you are your own God, you are God. He said this multiple times, and yet he also says, don't worship yourself, but you're God. You're God, don't worship yourself. And that this is his spiritual enlightenment, his spiritual teaching. We become gods through grace by the engagement of the uncreated energies. And so he is a perennialist, another dissolving of boundaries and distinctions between things. And so Russell is fighting then his more recent videos, his more recent claims of, again, fighting the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum and being a truth teller on the COOF. Again, well, a little late, but the fact that he's doing this and he thinks he's doing, and whether he's acting or this or that, he's actually fighting a system that his spirituality is actually part of. And so the demonic kenosis is about the dissolution of boundaries. His spirituality aids also. He is very critical of capitalism and property and buying things. And yet then we saw at the end when Klaus Schwab's talking about you're not going to own anything, you're going to like it. Now all of a sudden he's upset with it. We saw that he's against the vaccine passports. But Russell, if we're all one and the individual is an illusion and it doesn't really exist, doesn't that make sense then that the global hive mind dictates what every individual does? Because all the individuals are not really real. And so if we're all just consciousness, and consciousness is this thing that is higher and higher and higher, well, and is more unified, well, shouldn't the global hive mind then dictate what goes in and out of my body? Why do you, Russell, want to choose what can go in and out of your body? Because you do believe in the individual. And so then the whole thing about the transhumanism, another dissolving a boundary, but yet his talking about progress, technological progress, we're moving in progress, we're moving forward. And what? We're going to become immortal. We're going to upload your consciousness to a computer. I don't know how he feels about that, because he's very ecological, as we saw how he was very glowing about Greta Thunberg. And then he talks about how we got to do a new economic structure at one point in the videos, and then at the other one, he's upset with the World Economic Forum and what they're trying to do. And yet we see also this World Economic Forum promoting articles about not eating meat, about cow flatulence, about vegan diets, vegetarian diets. We see all these fake synthetic forms of meat and protein, like Bill Gates and whoever it be. And Russell Brand's a vegan. And so there's no distinction from him between animals and man, because he believes in this Darwinian Wallace theory of evolution. And so, so we see that there's a bit of a conflation of paradigms for Russell, that it seems like maybe he's starting to get it. Again, certainly he should have our compassion. We should certainly pray for him as Christians, because it seems like he really wants, as made by Jim Bob said earlier, he's really looking for that sort of unifying ground, which is the Logos, which is then a person in Jesus Christ. So like the abstract universal Logos, that the founding ground of reality, that which unifies all things, is also a singular person. Again, one in the many, the abstract and the particular. That we have this in our Godhead, and it seems like that's what he needs, that's what he's looking for. He has a Christian morality, but then the whole thing, when it comes then to philosophy and theology, it's all these conflation of categories and category errors, and it ultimately doesn't make sense. And so I think it's indicative, as I said, of a lot of contemporary seekers, and I hope then that this video, people who feel similar about his worldview could potentially watch this, and if I did a good job, God willing and hopefully, then they might see why a Christian worldview, particularly an Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox Christian worldview, makes way much more sense. And there's a lot of things that you actually don't have to give up on. And there's a lot of things that we actually agree with Russell on, like love, like vibes, like energies, like truth, like archetypes, like metaphors. But we can root all these things. We have what's called a justification for those. Unfortunately, his worldview doesn't. And it's just a hodgepodge of all these things. And so when you start to look at it as a totality, it just becomes contradictory and nonsense. And so that's going to do today's stream, guys. Please smash that like. I'm now going to dive into some super chats and hope that and hope that if you'd like to support, you can send in something using the Streamlabs link, or if you prefer to use YouTube, feel free to use that. Guys, thank you for everybody that's here. Please smash that like. First super chat comes from the one and only Genghis Khan. Shout out to Genghis Khan. You have been very generous lately, brother. Throws in a $9.99 and a $10. 2 super chats from Genghis Khan tonight, guys. And he said, smash that like. So Genghis Khan is reiterating my message to you all. Smash that like. Smash that like. So thank you so much, Genghis Khan, for your support of the stream. And right at the early beginning of the stream, we had and let me refresh this just so you can see it. We had Russell Brand throwing $5. So this was right at the beginning of the stream, and it says, thanks for exposing me, dude. Well, no problem, Russell. I hope you enjoyed it. And God bless you, brother. And I'm sure a lot of people here and myself, I will say a prayer for you tonight that you may follow truth and find Christ and hopefully find orthodoxy, because that's really where all this whole game ends. All the rabbit holes, all the conspiracies that he hasn't put together yet but still looking into, it all ends with Christ. And so I hope he's able to find it. Next super chat comes from Steve. Steve throws in $3 and says, hey, DPH, checking for the first time in a bit. Hope you're doing well. Well, thank you very much, Steve, for the $3. I'm doing great, man. Really loving life. I'm back on my schedule, my workout, my diet, and really excited. I'm back on my content schedule. So this week we hit Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're going to do Sunday, and we'll get right back on to a Tuesday. So every other day, I'm just really excited to be back creating content. So, yeah, I'm doing great, brother. I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Steve, for throwing in $3, man. Hope you're doing good. Again, I'm not sure. That might be my buddy Steve down in Georgia. So shout out to you, man. If that is you, again, all I'm seeing is Steve. I don't see your last name. If that is you, man, hope you and the family are doing well and hope the babies are well. Next super chat comes from Bone Man 538, throws in $5. Shout out to Bone Man 538. Says, my boomkin in World of Warcraft was named Oprah Winfrey. That list, though. Let me refresh this super chat for you guys just so you can see it. But he spelled he said my boomkin. I don't even know what boomkin is. I've never played World of Warcraft, but he said it was named Oprah. So Oprah, Oprah, one word, Wind, IWND, Fury. So Oprah, Wind, Fury. You say that all together, it sounds like Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey. That's hilarious. Shout out to Boneman538. God bless you, man. Hope you're doing well. Next super chat comes from Pim Orsels. Throws in $10. Shout out to Pim. He was that person who sponsored that Khazarian stream. So if you appreciated learning a little bit about the Khazarian Jewish Empire, shout out to Pim. That was his doing. He sponsored that stream. And he throws in $10 tonight with no comment. Pim, thank you so much, brother. Glad you're here. And thank you, Pim, so much for all your support, man. Very, very generous. You have been very generous to me, and I really, really appreciate your support, Pim. Thank you very, very much, brother. God bless you and yours. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Next super chat comes from Taylor, throws in $25, and Taylor says, the fact that he listed every reason for the crucifixion other than humility and sacrifice is proof he completely misses the point and is making it all about him, aka rebirth, resurrection. Great point, Taylor. Man, I should have used that during the stream. That's a great point. That his emphasis when he talked about having the crucifix on his arm, that he talked about how it was, well, this is the symbol of death and rebirth. This is the resurrection, and how this is what he's doing, and this is emblematic of his own spiritual journey and process and the attainment of Christ consciousness. But Taylor makes a perfect point. Again, shout out and thank you for the $25 super chat. He says, or her, I'm not sure, the fact that he listed every reason for the crucifixion other than humility and sacrifice, which again are things that we do for other people, or certainly something that's not focused on myself, is proof he completely misses the point. Amen about that. He totally missed. As we saw with Eckhart Tolle, I mean, true humility, Christian Orthodox humility, is definitely not part of their spiritual worldview, because that was considered your ego, right? That's your ego getting down on you. You right? Don't get down on yourself, right? That's not what higher consciousness is. But at the same time, that's what our orthodoxy teaches us: to get on our knees, to pray, to ask for humility, to be repentful, to ask for forgiveness. And in those ways, then we are raised up. So shout out to Taylor. Great comment there. Next super chat comes from, wow, $50 from the Green Feathers. Shout out to Nick from the Green Feathers. Thank you so much, brother. $50 super chat. Congratulations again on your new job, man. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. He says, Matthew 24:11, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Well, let's read Matthew 24:11. I know that you just threw that in there, and you were quoting it there, but I got a Bible right here, so let's just hop into the Orthodox Study Bible. 24:11. I got it right here. And so I'll read the whole context. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. Ooh, wow. Powerful stuff. Are we there? Are we in the end times? Let me see. And so the footnote is that all these calamities and all this opposition cannot stop the spread of the gospel. And indeed, persecutions against the church often increase the number of souls being converted. St. John Chrysostom marvels that while the Romans subdued countless Jews in a political uprising, they could not prevail over 12 Jews unarmed with anything except the gospel of Jesus Christ. Think about that one. Think about that one. I love that. The Romans were able to subdue countless Jews in a political uprising. Remember, they destroyed the temple in the year 70. Yet, the Roman Empire could not stop 12 Jews who were unarmed except with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Amen to that. St. John Chrysostom, again, old golden mouth, is always beneficial for the soul. So, Green Feathers, brother, thank you so much. God bless you and the family, man. Hope everybody's doing well. And I really, really appreciate your support, man. Nick, you've been a continual supporter of the stream. Thank you, brother. Thank you very, very, very much. And that goes true for all of you guys. I really appreciate it. Next super chat comes from, Boneman538 throws in another one. Shout out to Boneman. He throws in $5 and says 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 = 4. No one ever went to war over a math problem. The question for objective truth is key. Logos. Absolutely. That's hilarious. No one went to war over a math problem. Oh, Bowman538, dude, you're always funny. Absolutely. And the way he spelt this was so clever. So I'm going to refresh the super chat so you guys can see it. Look how he spelt it. 2 + 2 also = 4. 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 = 4. Very clever, Bowman. God bless you. Thank you again for the $5, man. The question, again, I love that. No one ever went to war over a math problem. The question of objective truth is key. Logos. Amen to that. Next super chat comes from Stefan. Throws in $5. Stephen, no comment. Well, thank you very much, Stephen. I'll go with Stephen. Thank you very much for the $5, brother. God bless you and yours. I really appreciate it. Next super chat comes from Frankie D. The Frankie D throws in $5 and said, Sadhguru is a great example of someone who is speaking about an orthodox notion, but in a distorted way. It is good for us Christians not to be attached to the world, but our reasons for doing so are radically different than those of Sadhguru and the World Economic Forum. Absolutely. And another thing too is like even the non-attachment of, Brand and the Tolis of the world and the Deepak Chopras talking about, don't be attached to reality. Don't be attached to creation. Don't be attached to the world. Well, Orthodoxy teaches us the same thing. That's the point of our asceticism. And that our asceticism prevents us from that sort of attachment to the world. But at the same time, we don't do away with desire. Desire is not the point of suffering. We would argue desire is not suffering. Suffering is actually one condition due to the fall, but also us not following God. It's our own sins is our own suffering, most likely. So, in regards to, the attachment thing, it's like, yeah, we shouldn't be attached to the world, just like the Buddhists. But the Buddhist also tells people that the desire for your children, the desire for your life, all these things, the desire for your wife, these things are actually sufferings as well. And so you got to deal with those things. Well, in a Christian context, if your martyrdom, your Orthodox martyrdom, if you went and got married at a church and you made that pact to that woman in front of God, that you would die, that you would protect, that you would provide to the last of your dying day, yeah, there's a desire there. There's a contract there. There's a responsibility there. And that's not a spiritual detriment to one's enlightenment. It's actually that responsibility and selflessness and suffering is actually an elevation. That's why it's a martyrdom. It's a dying to the world, and that's a way to escape the world. That's a way for Christian salvation. So our attachment to and our understanding of desires is different. We certainly don't want to be attached, but not all desires are negative. The desire to be back with God, the desire to be Christ-like, the desire to protect and provide for your family, these are not bad. And these do not prevent you or hold you back from your own spiritual growth. So we would have a very different opinion of that than some of these Eastern mystical or Buddhistic approaches that we heard tonight. So Frankie D, thank you so much, brother. Frankie D is always helping me out and supporting the stream. Frankie D, again, for $5, said, Sadhguru is a great example of someone who is speaking about an orthodox notion, but in a distorted way. True, facts. It is good for us as Christians not to be attached to the world, facts. But our reasons for doing so are radically different than those of Sadhguru and the World Economic Forum, facts. Because having private property isn't bad. Having private property is biblical. Having a plot of land, having a home, having, again, a homestead, having family and kids and helping with the farm, and that's not bad. The World Economic Forum, which is telling you, oh, yeah, you're not going to own anything and you're going to love it, that is a forced rape. That's a stealing. It's a form of theft. That is not the same thing as sort of not being attached, or the man who maybe is totally his ego or his identity is attached to his homestead or his property or the things he owns. That is different. That is absolutely different. And we, as Frankie D is highlighting, we are ascetic and we are not attached to the world for very different reasons than Eastern mysticism or the World Economic Forum wants us to be. So next super chat comes from Name Not Found, throws in $1.99 and says, are some people so far gone that prayer is hopeless? And we would say it is possible to be so far gone, but that's not for our decision to make. So we as Christians we aren't the Trinity, we should always pray for people. Whether we think that they might be or not be too far gone or not, that's not for our decision. We do believe, according to tradition and the church fathers and what's been revealed, that some people, that you can get into a place where you've blasphemed the Holy Spirit to a degree where you've become so corrupt that your heart has become so hard that repentance and salvation is basically out of the question for you. But we as Christians aren't to make that decision. We are to always pray for people who need prayer. So in regards to this question, Name Not Found, I don't know who you had in mind if you're talking about Russell Brand here, but Russell Brand certainly needs our prayers. Whether he's too far gone or not, that's between God and his personal soul and his personal decisions and who he is. We don't know about that. We don't know his heart. We don't know where he may be in a better place than we think he is based on it. We don't know. We don't make those decisions, but we always pray for people. So whether you think they're too far gone or not, doesn't matter. Say a prayer for somebody. And in fact, that selflessness is part of us being Christ-like. So So for us to ever insinuate somebody's too hopeless and not pray for them, that would be the opposite of what Christ would do. So we need to keep that in mind and make sure that no matter who it is, Dr. Klaus Schwab, we should pray for him. I mean, that's only going to work better for your own spiritual growth, whether he's too far gone or not. So just want to throw that out there. Frankie D throws in another super chat for $5. Frankie D says, I think our excitement over leftist types like Russell is related to the false savior complex. We think if these leftist types see our point of view that somehow they will influence others to our side, but often they go a different route. Good comment. Yeah, I think our excitement over leftist types like Russell is related to a false savior complex. We think that if the leftist types see our point of view that someday they will influence others to our side. I didn't create this stream thinking I was going to rescue Russell Brand from his spiritual worldview. He's probably never even going to know this stream ever even existed. Maybe he will because I use his clips and it may pop up on his YouTube channel. Is he going to watch the stream? Probably not. Would it change his mind? Probably not. One, this was a sponsored stream, so shout out to Nick Edmonds for sponsoring tonight's stream. That's why we did this topic. And I hope that it's useful for the leftist types that aren't Russell Brand who watch it. You know, the goal is here, Frankie D, totally agreeing with you, that the goal is a lot of people who may have opinions similar to Russell may watch this stream tonight, a week from now, a month from now, 2 years from now, and they may see, well, geez, that kind of doesn't make sense. That does kind of contradict that. That sounds like what I believe, but maybe I don't believe that. That's the goal. The goal is to save the people who watch. If Russell Brand were to watch this or want to have a conversation, then glory to God, I'd be more than happy. But I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think I don't think that certainly wasn't my goal. But I do get your point, generally speaking. I think we over some of us in the Orthodox sphere. Or generally anybody doing it, or apologetics, it's just, we get frustrated because for the reasons why we see it to be true, we try to give those reasons to somebody else so they can see through the prism that we see through. And maybe they just don't find it important or think it's useful. I mean, for example, if somebody didn't believe in objective truth and was okay with like internal contradictions in their worldview, or there's not a whole lot I can do. I can talk about the logos and orthodoxy and Christ till I'm blue in the face, but unless you care about the same things that are essential for the reason of which why I'm giving you Christianity to be true, it's really not going to matter a whole lot. It's really not going to matter a whole lot. So, but I do agree with you, Frankie D. Shout out to you, man. I think a lot of we think that these leftist types are going to see our point of view that somehow they will influence others to our side, but often they go a different route. It's true. But my thing, the majority of people that speak out and reach out to me are from the New Age. So that's why I thought this YouTube was channeled, because a lot of the people who I try to do apologetics for would probably be in Russell Brand's wheelhouse, so to speak. So anyways, Frankie D, thank you so much, brother, for all the super chats and the support. Next one comes from, actually, let's see if we have any on Rockfin. We do. We got one on Rockfin. Shout out to Sword from the Mouth. Sword from the Mouth throws in $5 and says, great analysis, David. Thank you for what you do. Well, thank you so much, Sword from the Mouth. I really appreciate your super chat and support, brother. God bless you. And shout out to everybody over at The Rock. Smash those likes, Rockfin brothers and sisters. And that is also true for all of our brothers and sisters here over on YouTube. Smash that like. Next super chat comes from Elizabeth Moldovan. Elizabeth says, and I'm not sure what currency that is, but she throws in $15 and says, thank you for your vids. Really high level teaching. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Elizabeth. Thank you very much. I am humbled if they're useful in any way. I do them because I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. And so these streams are a negotiation between me and him. And so if they're useful, glory be to God. Glory be to God. But if you find them as high-level teachings, well, then I am very humbled by that, because that is the goal. That is the goal. This channel's goal is not for slow boys. It's for people that have some life experience, that have gone down a few rabbit holes, that are looking for truth, and that they can drink from a fire hose. And so that's what the goal of this YouTube channel is. And so, Elizabeth, clearly you're also on that journey, and I'm on that journey, and we've all been on that journey. So, and since we're all brothers and sisters in the Church of the Eternal Logos. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much. Australian currency. I got it. So, Elizabeth, thank you so very much. I really appreciate your kind words, and I'm humbled that you found them useful in any way. So, God bless you and your family, and stay safe down there in Australia. Things look like they're a bit tricky. So, God bless you, Elizabeth. Next super chat comes from Veronica. Veronica throws in $3 and said, love the topic. 2 hours flew by, and the chat was super entertaining as well. Thanks, and God bless you. Well, Veronica, thank you. And yes, we have the best live chat in YouTube, or on YouTube. Shout out to all the usual. Shout out to Thomas Henderson. Shout out to Crispy Johnson. Shout out to the Green Feathers. Shout out to David Atkinson. Right? I'm just looking here. Shout out to Mickey. It's just the usuals, right? It's just the usual gang is here. And so, yeah, we have a lot of fun. The live chat's usually pretty funny. And so it flew by. It's already over 3 hours. This stream's already been over 3 hours long. Wow. But Veronica, again, for $3 said, love the topic. 2 hours flew by, and the chat was super entertaining as well. Thanks, and God bless. Well, God bless you, Veronica. God bless you and your family. And again, God bless all of our usuals in the live chat. We got the best ortho community, and I really appreciate it, and I love you guys, and I appreciate everything you guys do, sharing the content, hitting the like button, coming here, watching these streams. I promise I'll continue to put the work in to make quality content that is worth you watching. As long as you guys keep showing up and support me. So it's a feedback loop. I'll put in the work. I'll create the content. You guys support me and be here. And I love it. I feel like this is my purpose. So thank you very much, Veronica, for the $3. I really appreciate it. God bless you and yours. Next super chat comes from Simon the Zealot. Simon the Zealot throws in $5 and says, keep the hard work, brother. Great content. Well, thank you so much, Simon the Zealot. I really appreciate that, and I promise that I will keep up the hard work. I always do. I never want to come out here slacking. Last thing I want is for you guys to turn on a stream and be like, gosh, it's kind of weak. I don't know. It's kind of weak sauce. No, I want you guys to think they're always good. Deep, a lot of important substantive stuff. So thank you very much. Simon the Zealot throws in $5, said, keep up the hard work, brother. Great content. Well, thank you very much. Next super chat comes from Lechat, throws in $5 and says, I appreciate your content. Thank you for doing what you do. Well, Lechat, thank you so much. I appreciate you doing what you've done. So thank you very much, Lechat, for the super chat and for the support. I am humbled again that you like the content. I do my best to consistently bring quality information and content to you guys, and so if you enjoy it, then that makes me happy, because that shows that whatever I'm trying to do here is successful to some degree. So thank you so much, Lechat. I really appreciate it. Again, $5 said, I appreciate your content. Thank you for doing what you do. Well, thank you for doing what you've done, and I promise that I'll continue doing what I do. So thank you there. And then the very last super chat comes from Samuel Jim. And Samuel Jim throws in $5 and says, thanks, David, for your invaluable and respectful evisceration of Brand's perennialism. Well, I hope so. I probably could have done a better job. I always get off here and maybe a clip, like a section will pop up the stream and it's like, man, I wish I would have done better. I could have done X, Y, Z, but it is what it is. I never know what I'm going to say. Again, I just had some bullet points, like literally for the stream. I just have some bullet points, and then we go. We just dive in. This was the preparation for the stream. That's all I had, and then we go. And so I'm glad you guys liked it. I never knew what I'm going to say. I just get out here and do it. So That's it. Again, that is the super chats. Please smash that like, guys. A special thank you goes to, we got another super chat over on The Rock. We got the Gladiating throws in $5 and said, missed the live stream, but we'll watch it later. Well, thank you very much, Gladiating, over on The Rock. So shout out to Sword from the Mouth and shout out to Gladiating over on Rockfin for the super chats. And then I want to give a special thank you to Samuel Jin, LeChat, Simon the Zealot, Veronica, Elizabeth Moldovan, Frankie D, Name Not Found, Frankie D again, Stephen, Bone Man 538, The Green, Nick from the Green Feathers, Taylor, Pim, Bone Man 538, Steve, Genghis Khan, Russell Brand. Thank you all so much for super chats and for supporting tonight's stream. God bless you all. I will be back Sunday with a new stream that is going to be, at least as of right now, maybe I'll change my mind, but the topic that I think I'm going to do is that truth is anti-fragile. And so I'm going to be doing a deep dive on truth and how truth is anti-fragile. That if something's true, you can kick the tires. You can check the engine. You can actually put it to the test, and it's going to survive. Because if if truth was crucified, if truth was tried to be killed by this world, and it wasn't, Christ then is the image of the ultimate anti-fragility. And so that's what I'm going to get into Sunday. So I hope you guys will join me for that. But as always, until next time, which will be Sunday, God bless.